Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and let's try another attempt at live streaming once more. I really don't know what it is, guys, and I really have to apologize for what's going on here. I did like an hour test stream with a couple of friends before I started this. Everything worked fine. And then for some strange reason, everything did not work any longer when I went public with it. So yeah, I do hope this one's gonna go a little bit better now. So let's just hope for the best over here. Now, as before, we are going to try and do this one like completely from the very beginning, meaning we'll start with the actual flight planning itself. But follow me inside and we are just going to take a seat here in one of those lovely business seats in the 777 freighter, and then we'll just go straight into the flight planning aspect of things. So let's start over here on Flight Radar 24. Let's hope that it's gonna work a little bit better this time. Okay, so let's give this a try. This is going to be our flight, German Cargo 472, or AeroLogic 472 from Frankfurt to Seattle. Now, we are, as always, going to plan this from here, straight into SimBrief. So we'll start with a couple of the basics here. German Cargo 472 departing from Frankfurt to Seattle, and it's going to be a 777F. Now, SimBrief is going to calculate a default route for us over here. We are, however, going to correct that, I can tell you that much. Now, let's already change our alternate up here, either Vancouver or Portland. Well, probably Portland might be a little bit smarter with, what's Portland again? Is that PVD? Let me zoom in a bit. No, PDX. Alright, here we go. Now, for the departure time, the real one departs at 14:10, as we could see in Flight Radar. No, you don't need to change that. So here we are, departing at 14:10, landing at 0:50, and that means we are probably going to have like, what, 9 hours 50 plus that, so 10 hours and 40 minutes of scheduled block time. So let's insert 10:40 down here. Now, our aircraft is the Delta Alpha Lima Tango, if I'm not completely mistaken, but let's quickly go into the simulator once again and check. So here we go, Delta Alpha Lima Tango. Alright, so let's go ahead and insert that registration over here. Cost index is going to be probably about 50 or so. And we are, of course, at PMDG 777, which I'm going to enter over here. Cost index 50, we had that. Alright, so now let's go ahead and check our departure weather. Departing Frankfurt, the wind's currently northerly at 5 knots. There is no VATSIM ATIS, but it's probably going to be runway 07 with this. According to the forecast down here, the wind is actually turning, so I do kind of expect this to be runway 07, and in that case 07 center is the one that makes sense, so let's keep that over here. Arrival weather in Seattle, let's check what we've got. We are going to arrive in, well, maybe 3 hours in real world time, so looking at an arrival time of around 19 to 2000 UTC. So looking into this, we'll have easterly winds, scattered clouds, broken clouds, but overall okay flying conditions. Let's see, in the real world they're using runway 16 left and right, so let's go ahead and stick to runway 16 right, which is planned for us down here. Now, passengers, we are not going to have any. Payload, we are going to transport, let's say, 90 tons of cargo, which is very, very heavy. And did I just literally click the wrong button? I just clicked the wrong button. I'm sorry, guys, we'll do that again real quick. So, Fratosia and B77F. I have a button to go forward and backwards in my tabs on my mouse. And, yeah, guess what it did, huh? No further comment on that. That was my stupidity. But it's late evening, I can live with that. Okay, so that stuff's done. Over here we have a PMDG 777, Delta Alpha Lima Tango. That stuff goes away, that stuff comes back. Flight time, we said it's 10 hours 40, runway 7 center, runway 16 right, 0 passengers and 90 tons of cargo. Okay, perfect, here we are again. Now we do have a couple of different routes over here. Let's go ahead and use the calculate and compare function to see if any of them are actually realistic, or we could just go over here to Edikla, which is one of my favorite websites for real-life routes. So let's just go onto the real-world flight over here, see what they got. So they used alternate Portland as well, so we weren't too bad with our guesstimation. There is, well, no useful stuff in the remarks. Some operators write their takeoff weights and stuff like that. But what we do have over here is a real-world route, so we could just copy that, then go back to SimBrief, insert that over here, and see what that's gonna look like. Alright, and that's a real-world route that's been used on this flight, so I really always do like using those. Pretty useful stuff if you ask me. Alright, we just gotta remove all those restrictions that were there by default. Okay, then find, sit and star, and it's going to be the Oboka 3 dick shift departure. The Germans among us will know what that means. Okay, so that looks good so far. Let's hit calculate and compare and see what we are gonna get over here. And alright, that's 10 hours and 6 minutes. So that is rather long, as you guys can probably figure. But hey, if it works, I'm totally happy with that. Now, let's nonetheless go ahead and check the other routes that we've got over here. So the first one is a VATSIM route, pretty southerly, so let's see how that's going to work out. But that's following NutTrack Alpha. Okay, and that's actually 6 minutes shorter, while being 161 miles longer, so that's probably a better option. Let's also try the other one. Let's also hit calculate and compare over here. And that one is 4 minutes shorter, so not as good as the first one up here is. And then we have a couple of VATSIM routes down here. Now that one's too similar. Ooh, that's one that we could definitely try. Very northerly route. So let's calculate and compare that one. And no, that is 49 minutes longer. So actually the first route was not the best, but there is one very good reason for actually taking that first route. And it is the very simple fact that probably everyone flying transatlantic on the VATSIM network at the moment is flying along the tracks. So if we stay slightly off the track, that means we'll have to worry a lot less about other traffic. And for this very reason, I am going to go to use that first route. Apart from the fact that it contains less turns and therefore less margin for error in cruise later on. So that is what I'm going to do over here. Alright, so that's that part. Then let's go ahead and head down into the ETOPS scenario. So I want to do an automatic planning here. Let's do 180-minute scenario. And no, that is definitely not something that I would be happy with. So let's try that one more time. Okay, so we're actually entering the ETOPS area up here at Keflavik. So Bravo India Kilo Fox. And we'll not be leaving it through Churchill, but probably down here. Well, we'll have to play a little bit with it. My guesstimate is that we are going to leave it through Edmonton, but let's see. So we will be using Keflavik, then we got Frozen Bay, then we got... well, let's see. If we just take Edmonton here, let's see what that looks like. That's actually not too shabby. Ignore that Churchill over here. That airport is not really that capable of taking a 777, so we're not going to use that. It says Keflavik is potentially below limits. Let's see. No, it's not. Keflavik, we need like the next 4 hours, so yeah, that temper weather is going to apply. And that's perfectly fine flying weather. Absolutely nothing for us to worry about. Alright, cool. So that's our ETOPS route then. Very nice. Then we just gotta handle the alternates over here, because I did mess them over for a bit. So let's see. We've got Portland as number 1, for sure. Then we will be using Vancouver as number 2. Then what else do we have in the area over here? Now, I think the other two probably not gonna matter too much, so what we can do is, oops, not that, but this, average for sure. And, well, the last one, let's use Boeing field. So, a lot of stuff in Seattle over here, but seeing that the general area is fine, I'm totally happy with that. Now, for our en route alternate, we are going to use Edmonton over here. That's within this dashed circle. And with that, we basically have our route. Now, let's go ahead and generate that flight, see what the outcome is going to be, and then we can see if any more changes might be needed to our flight plan. For me, personally, it's easiest to see any possible mistakes on the PDF version of the flight plan. So let's directly go to View PDF. So the route is looking fine. We are somewhat crossing the nets over here, but that shouldn't be a problem. They won't be active anymore by the time we get there. Okay, so weather should be fine anyway. Then let's have a look at the weights. Rather heavy takeoff weights, lots of margin on the landing weight. Throttle 300, pretty low flight today, but that's going to help keeping us away from a lot of the other VATSIM traffic, so that makes our life easiest. Alright, the arrival is on time. We probably don't even need such a high cost index, and the entire rest is looking pretty good to me. Let's see the fuel section real quick, what they say. So arriving with about, 10 tons of fuel on board. That's fine for me. So 92.5 tons of minimum fuel for today's flight. Alright, perfectly happy with that. I don't think we are going to need much extra fuel here, but let's just quickly review the airport weather once. So Seattle right now is totally fine flying weather. A little bit low clouds, but should be no problem at all. The same goes for the alternates. So yeah, 92.5 tons it is, with no need to take any more than that. Alright, wonderful. So that's the flight plan. Now I am quickly going to file that one on VATSIM, but I will do that in the background so that you guys don't get to see all my login details and stuff. And well, once that is done, we'll make our way to the cockpit and we'll start working on our flight. So VATSIM flight plan is filed, then let's head up to the flight deck and see what we're going to be in for today. And here we are, beautiful 777 freighter. So just a very quick check that my sim is set up correctly for VATSIM use. Time is set to custom. I am using different time there, real life weather, and that's what we need to be allowed to fly in VATSIM over here, because I am following the real world time of the flight, departing in 30 minutes from now. Alright, great. So that's the setup. And Eurobeta asking in the comments, is this pre-recorded? No, it's not. This is actually live. I know you guys are not used to seeing live streams from me anymore. I did have significant internet issues due to a construction site that went on, which basically limited me to an upload of, what was it, like 10 Mbits or so. Literally took 2 hours to upload like a 1 hour flight. So yeah, I couldn't live stream with that. Luckily all that stuff is solved now. So hopefully we'll be live a little bit more often in the course of the next couple of weeks, month, and so on. Alright, cool. So that stuff is now done, and Rohit saying in the comments, still lagging. Now that's interesting. I don't see any lag myself, and I am watching this on my own iPad as I'm doing it, so not 100% sure where that comes from. On the iPad it's like completely fluid for me now. So flight plan's downloaded. Let's go into the weight and balance app, and then we can go for precise loading, import, and for the fuel we set 92.5. Now don't ask me why sometimes the cursor is going out of here. 92.5, here it is. Cool. So that stuff's now done, then let's go ahead and start our actual SOPs. ADRU on, voice recorder on, then let's go down here, and we've got sufficient hydraulics, sufficient oxygen, Very quick oxygen mask test, left side and right side. Both looking good, and we are going to test the aft masks here as well, because on a flight like this we would definitely have a third pilot with us. Cool, so that's done. Then let's go ahead and do a recall, and all of this is looking good and expected. Very good. Alright, engines have enough oil for the flight, so that's all looking good now. Alright, nice. Who about 10? What is the block time today? Well, we are going to take about 2.5 or 3 hours. I will be using time acceleration in cruise. So about 2.5 or 3 hours, but that way I can literally talk you through the entire flight, which I do like. Alright, so flight information, ATIS request. We are going to be using VATSIM over here and Echo Delta Delta Foxtrot. Alright, with automatic updates, let's see if there is anything available. Not 100% sure for that yet. And Fuong, where am I from? From Germany. Alright, so new messages, and here we go. Frankfurt, information alpha, runways in use 25. Okay. Or runway 18, so we'll have to taxi the long way. That's fine with me. Light showers of rain, temperature 13, QNH 1015. Okay, cool. So that is now set up. And Superb Elias asking, is the 777F on par with the Phoenix in regards to visual and system depth? System depth, most definitely. Visuals, personally I think yes, but there are some people who seem to not like the PMDG way of modeling, but I personally think it is. The outside is a little bit less detailed, gotta admit that. Alright, so then let's go ahead and start our FMS setup, and for that I will be using my WinWing MCDU to make my inputs, because I just simply love that piece of hardware, and I know that it is a little bit difficult for you guys to follow along what exactly I'm doing when I'm using the WinWing, so I will be talking about it while we do it, but I just totally love that unit, and let's admit it, if you pay some money for that hardware, you want to use it, right? Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll start down here. We're at 777-200.4, which is the freighter. We've got the GE90-110 engine. The nav database is up to date. Then let's go to POS init, copy and paste the GPS position. Now route, request, SimBrief route, and select. Now this may take a little while until it actually arrives. So let's just give it that time. And LS has been asking in the comments, you seem to do a lot of long hauls and upload often. I was wondering, how do you do them overnight or how do you do them? Basically, anything that's with the A350, A380 or 777 is recorded with time acceleration in cruise. That way it takes me like 3 hours to do a 10-hour flight. Alright, load that route down here. And the A330 things are indeed recorded overnight, taking off at like, 11 PM and then landing in the morning, just because the plane doesn't support time acceleration properly. But otherwise it would definitely, otherwise I would record them with acceleration. I see no sense or no realism in doing an overnight just to go to bed. Okay, so that stuff is done. Then let's go ahead and cross-check the route. We're going from Frankfurt to Seattle on the German Cargo 472. Let's go to departures. Well, 25 center as per the ATIS, and then we got an Oboka departure, probably Oboka 5 Golf, but we'll check with ATC. Now for the arrivals in Seattle, it'll be the ILS approach runway 16 right. We've got the Glazer 3 arrival, and arriving from Jackson. There's probably no transition for that, that's totally fine, we'll just do it this way. Okay, let's hit activate, and then we'll go next page to cross-check our entire routing. So, Oboka, Zulu 28 Dibia, direct to Budip, direct Godas, Mike 981 Natep, Yankee 96 Haven, direct Glasgow, direct Bruce, direct Etilo. Then we've got 61 north 20 west, 63 and a half north 30 west, 66 and a half north 40 west, 68 north 50 west, 68 north 60 west, camel, then 67.5, 70, 66.5, 80, 65, 90, 63.5, 100, 58, 110, 58, 115, Yankee Zulu Uniform, Londro, Yankee Delta Charlie, Jackson. Alright, so the route is cross-check and is correct. Now, Super Paolo, that's and Ryan Ndungu asking in the comments, how do you have so much free time? Now, that's actually quite an easy one to explain. I will be going on with my FMS setup here while I'm doing that. So, flying long haul, you do like 4 to 5 flights a month, and between that you usually have 2 or 3 days off. The problem is, the days that you've got off are usually not gonna be weekends. That means your friends and your family are gonna be at work. And that's the harsh reality of being an airline pilot. So, your friends and family are at work. Your colleagues are very likely not going to be off at the time that you are off. Well, and that means you have a lot of free time at hand. That's just the reality of the job. Imagine in, let's say, a normal job, you could easily do stuff like you could, like, you know, go to sports clubs and that kind of stuff. But try finding a football team that's going to say, yeah, no problem, you can train with us, you can do all the things, but you don't want to come to the matches. Now we got a problem. So, you know, that's one of the sides of the reality of being an airline pilot. It's not always as easy to do stuff as it is in some other professions. And well, that simply leaves you with a lot of free time. Alright, so step climbs are in here. Now let's go ahead and do the wind data request. And Runway 03 in the comments, weekend getaway with the kids. Maybe once a month. Once a month, maximum. AirDog, a business class member for 3 months already. You've got a question. In real life, would you read all airfield and area note times, or how do you deal with them, as there are heaps for every flight? Yes, airfield note times, absolutely. You would go through all of them. En route note times. Let's admit it, the dispatcher will be very happy reading them. And Ljuvik, at least you get time off. Well, that's true. But let's be honest over here. That's legally required. Superb Elias, am I planning to get the 737 or 777 FMCs from Windwing? Well, I am using my 777 FMC right now. So I guess that's your answer there. I don't plan on getting the 737 one though. I have the 777 and the Airbus. And I'm pretty happy with them. And Hubert 10, do you go to the gym in your free time? Well, on layovers. I do a little bit of home workout, but on layovers. Unless I'm doing something, you know. Okay, so that good stuff is done. Then Umda, could I explain the engine outs and how to set it up on the FMC? Now on the 777, that's completely automatic. You get the engine out SID comes up. Okay, so we have almost done the setup. The only thing we gotta do now, route copy, is to cross-check the North Atlantic points. So for that, we bring them up over here, then we copy them out from the route page or the lags page. You can decide on that. I find the route page easier. And then you click initRef, index, nav data, and then you insert it at the top left. The reason you do this is because over here it reads out the full latitude and longitude of the waypoint. And we got to be 110% sure that the waypoints are correct for the transatlantic segment of the flight, because ATC relies on them. So for this reason, we now got to go through the entire flight and cross-check those waypoints. They're especially nifty with those half coordinates. So those H 6430 means 64.5 north, 30 west. Those are especially annoying. But yeah, that way we've already checked that the naming convention matches the flight plan. Now we're checking that the coordinates match the naming convention. So that way we can quickly go through all of those and just check that all the waypoints are correct indeed. Note that due to a little bug in the PMDG, we can't check those waypoints over here. But hey, they do read out the full coordinates, so we just gotta trust them to be correct there. Alright, so 6590 is also correct. Then we've got 58, 110. So that's 58 north, 110 west. Also correct. Then 55 north, 115 west. And that should be the last one. Yep. So, they're all correct. AirDog, do we get any sorting or something for NOTAMs that affect you? Kinda. So, they are sorted, like what we've got down here as well. Let me try to find them. So, they're sorted like this. Like, airport. Then you have runway, sit, and approaches. However, in the real world, they are marked by colors. So if you've got something like a runway closure or a downgrade of an approach or something, that's going to be marked in color in the flight plan. So that makes it a lot easier to distinguish the really important NOTAMs from the not so important ones. But then again, you got to read them all. If you mess it up, then well, you're the one who's going to go for jail, respectively, as the air traffic controllers do like to say, if a controller makes a mistake, the pilot dies. If the pilot makes a mistake, it's also the pilot who dies. So yeah, got to be a little careful there. Alright then, so we are now all loaded, or at least all prepared down here, so let's request our loading. And let's get our ground services going. It's a freighter, so it should be quick. I hope. Okay, so that stuff's done. Then let's go ahead and check our systems. And someone asked how that work-life balance works for cargo pilots. And the only honest answer I can give there is that, well, if you work at night, you're not gonna be partying during the day. So, yeah, you will be asleep. So, no, you don't have more free time. And let's face it, on the long hauls, it's 24/7 anyway. So, on long hauls, you know, the plane goes somewhere during the day, comes back at night, or the other way around. Doesn't matter. Depending on the direction of flight, it's both for us as well. Usually going to North America happens during the day, while going to Southern Africa, or going to, you know, India, or even further east is going to happen with a departure at night. So it doesn't really matter too much to us as pilots. And let's face it, you aren't really gonna complain too much about flying at night, otherwise it's not the right job for you. I know that there are a lot of especially cabin crew who do the work because they want to see the destinations, and that's like their only motivation for the job. So, you know, they prefer the daylight flights, and then the night flights, they're rather unmotivated. So yeah, that does happen. Then again, there are many cabin crews who prefer flying during the night rather than flying during the day, for the simple fact that the passengers are asleep. And that means a lot less work, a lot less relaxation for them. Or rather, a lot more relaxation, a lot less work, that way around. And Aris Sipe in the comments, hello from Cyprus. Since the Sim Update 4, I can't move any buttons anymore. Yeah, that's a known problem with Sim Update 4, unfortunately. And Jake the Half-Cheek, member for 30 months. Man, this is a long, long time. Thank you very much, my friend. And what's next for me within my career? A350, captain, cargo? Honestly, depends. I'm sure there will be a new airplane type soon. But what's gonna come first? Going back to the left seat or the new long-haul type? We'll see. I'm open for both. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if we can get our clearance. So let's just see, review uplink ATIS. We have Frankfurt departure information alpha. So departure clearance request. We've got information alpha. We are on Foxtrot 232. Station is going to be Frankfurt. And something we always do in the real world. Gute. That's the Frankfurt way to say hello. Alright, so let's check. Gem Cargo 472, facility Frankfurt. From Frankfurt to Seattle, ATIS Alpha Gate Fox 232, Gute. Looks good. Let's send that clearance request. And see what we're gonna get back. And hi Scorp, nice to see you. And Elias128, hi Emmanuel, I'm currently doing my ATPL but might have a glaucoma. Do you have any advice? Yeah, you gotta talk to your aeromedical examiner and you'll have to see what you're going to... You know, if you're still legal to fly with that. And get advice from your doctor. That's like the only proper advice any pilot will be able to give you there. Alright, loading is well underway. Quite a bit of traffic over here as well. I do like that. Okay, so clearance request received, being processed, stand by. Thank you. And here's our clearance. Let's get that one in big. Yep, and they even replied. I like it. Now, in the real world, I actually once had one replying to that Gouda with, you know, that many U's. I had one replying like Space Gouda. These guys are creative, I tell you. Fun at work, most important thing. Alright, so let's see. Gem Cargo 472, clear to Seattle off 25 center. Oboka 5 Golf departure. Let's see, we've got 25 center and we've got the Oboka 5 Golf departure. Squawk 2576. Wait a moment. 2576, yeah. Okay, so actual departure time is based on the mean departure interval. In other words, no slot. Next frequency 121.855. ATIS Alpha report ready on 121.855. Good. Alright, we'll accept that clearance. Then 121.855 is going to be next. And that's it. Cool. So clearance accepted, send and cancel. And clearance is confirmed. Beautiful. Okay, lovely. So with that, our IFR clearance is received. Then we should already have our load sheet by now. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of mathematics once again. So zero fuel weight, 234.6. So 234.6 into here leads to a gross weight of 327.1 tons. And that is looking wonderful. So takeoff CG is 25. Then let's bring up the weather. Let's go to the performance tool. So Frankfurt runway 25 center. That is a wet runway as we... Well, it's just stopped raining again, but you can still see the showers over there. So it is going to be a wet runway for our purposes. We will shorten it slightly to allow for a little longer lineup and for intersection Lima 3. So 3,800 meters. Takeoff weight. We got 327.1 in here, so let's calculate 327.5. Like this. CG was 25 in here. Alright, I think that may just about be, yep, new weather. So let's use that. Wind variable at 3 knots, so we are going to use wind -5. So 5 knots of tailwind. Temperature is now 13 degrees down here. and the QNH 1016. Alright, calculate. And that gives us a flap 15 takeoff at 36 degrees assumed temperature. Alright, so 36 degrees, 99.7% N1, and that almost matches with the EFB. That's fine. That's down here is a little bit more because we don't have the APU running at the moment, so that is absolutely fine. Then let's go down to takeoff, flaps 15, CG 25, and our takeoff speeds 152, 168, 172. And I think down here if we enter a wet runway, then we are going to get something better. Yep, 52, 68, 72. That's all correct. So we can accept those speeds down here. Alright, great. And that's our performance calculation completed. So let's see what our loading is doing. So they're done with the small stuff. Last container is going in. And on this side we've got one more container to come on board as well. Lovely. So that's actually going pretty well. Alright, cool. So, with that we are pretty much done down here. We can cancel that ATIS. Then let's go ahead and do the pre-flight checklist. Oxygen tested 100% and flight instruments heading 336, altimeter 1015, reading 330, set left and set right. And that's the pre-flight checklist completed. Okay, excellent. And someone's asking where to get that table from that you guys see on this panel over here, and that's actually part of the livery. AeroLogic has that China and Mongolia RVSM table as a sticker in the cockpit in the real world as well. So that's actually meant to be there, let's call it that way. Alright, cool. So that's about everything we could do down here. Now let's go ahead and get ready for the actual flight. Now, I think I just heard a door close. Yep. That's the doors closing. Let's go ahead and start our APU. Let's also make sure that GSX is getting ready for departure. Well, it still says cargo loading in progress, so nonetheless prepare for push and departure. And then we'll see what's going on down there. Yeah, last pallet is coming in now. Thereafter we'll be ready. That is beautiful already. Very good. Okay, so with that I think we're mostly ready. Then let's just wait until they close the doors in the front hold. And since loading is completed, we've now got to go to the back. And it's part of the pilot's tasks to actually verify that everything's done down here. So let's just open up that door, and indeed everything's looking good down here. Wonderful. Then we can close that one. Alright, now let's go ahead and start closing the main doors. Where is that click spot? Nicely hidden somewhere over here. It's gotta be here. Well, otherwise we are just gonna close the door from the flight deck. That's making things easiest. Alright, here we are. Then let's quickly go ahead. Ground operations, door management, and one left, close. I think the main cargo door is about to be closed. Yep, beautiful. Why is it opening? God, GSX. One piece of a large flying bug, huh? Alright, so we still have two open doors in the back. The only question is why. Of course, over here it shows closed. So what's going on down there? I have a very bad feeling, guys. I had it once in the past that GSX basically failed my door in an open state. even though it was physically closed. I have a feeling that might be happening again right now. Well, let's try. Open the main cargo door. And you can also close the aft cargo one, by the way. If any of you guys has any recommendation of what you can do when that stupid thing gets stuck over there, do let me know. I think it's related somehow to GSX doing something on the vehicles or so. So, ground service vehicles, side cargo, request. We'll try it this way. And Lucian says if you just close all the doors... Okay, we can definitely try that one. So let's go via the FMC. Let's see, those are all on... No, those are the ground service vehicles, we don't need those. We need the doors down there. Let's try close all. See what's going to happen. So this is actually opening right now. Let's wait for it to close. It's a pity that it always takes that long to operate. But here we go, doors closing. Okay, in the meantime, one left and one right are closed, so we can go to the back and arm them. Let's do that real quick. So, one left is armed. And one right is armed. Excellent. Hey Charlie, nice to see you in the comments. Yeah, how's it going? I was about to say very well. We just gotta see if we can actually close that main deck cargo door. Yes, we can. Beautiful. Alright, so the advice to do it through the FMC was the right one. Thank you very much, guys. That's really helpful. Okay, and AA Sergeant KK, you gotta finish all PMDG services before telling GSX that you want to push. So, ground power away, chocks away, etc. before you give GSX the order. Okay, interesting. And ASAP, am I going to accelerate the speed for the flight? Yes, absolutely. Alright, so APU is running. External powers can be removed. So let's go ground connection, release external power. The parking brake is set, so the chocks can be removed as well. Very nice. So then, with all of that nice stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and call for clearance. 121.855. Ground from flight deck. Go ahead. So, please confirm all doors and hatches are closed, ground equipment is removed, and bypass pin is installed. Yes, all confirmed. Alright, thanks. Then we are going to call for pushback clearance. Stand by.
Frankfurt Apron, very good evening.
Ouch. That is definitely wrong. Changing the audio settings here in a moment. Alright. I'm sorry for that very loud pilot. Now we've got him on the headset. Okay, so we'll do 172 LNAV VNAV. Heading is going to be 244. Initial climb is 5,000 on this departure. And pressurizing the hydraulics.
On scope 11374, Lufthansa 9 Papa Kilo.
Like this. So, trim, we'll need 6 units of trim, and transponder is on. Alright, so B4 start checklist, please. MCP, V2 172, heading 244, altitude 5,000. Takeoff speeds, V1 152, VR 168, V2 172. CDU pre-flight completed, trims 6 units, 0 and 0. Taxi and takeoff briefing completed, and holding at beacon.
Initial climb is 70 and score 6652, Yuping at Mac Kilo. My kilo SID is Oboga 3 Mike.
Oboga 3 Mike for you think that my crew, sorry.
Oboga, Oscar, Bravo, Oscar, Kilo, Alpha.
Yeah, it's okay, he'll get it.
Oboga, oh Gott, das ist ein Zungenbrecher, okay. 3 Mike for you think that my kilo.
My kilo read back correct.
Frankfurt Apron, Gude, German Cargo 472 Heavy, request pushback and startup.
First flyer 7 Golf Yankee, Honeycomb on 2 left mail, bye-bye.
Honeycomb, good evening, flight 7 Golf Yankee. Frankfurt ground.
And Pygmy asking, how does time acceleration work on VATSIM?
First German Cargo 472, pushback approved,
I'll show you.
facing west.
Pushback approved, facing west, German Cargo 472.
472, sorry, facing east.
Facing east, 472. Okay, before start checklist complete.
Lufthansa 1172, apron hello.
Lufthansa 1172.
So, push approved, facing west.
Alpha 17, request clearance for destination.
And here we go.
Inside.
So, ground from cockpit, pushback approved, facing west, parking brake released, and we're standing by for your signal to start the engines.
Anegi to Lima departure route, we climb via SITS, altitude 4,000 feet, and squawk 1,000.
And Charlie M, now that I have the senior first officer badge on the chat, I'm on the jump seat today. I suppose you are. Alright, here we go. Magnificent airplane, isn't it? Just gotta love the 777. Gotta totally love it. And Prince John, did he correct that? Pushback instruction? I don't know. If we're pushing into the wrong direction, then so be it. We can taxi out either way here. And Borna, no, we are not on the Sim Update 4 beta, because, except for the Phoenix, pretty much no add-on aircraft seems to work with it. Yeah, I think we might be facing the wrong direction here, but it's gonna be fine. And Picos, yes, my graphic settings are mostly ultra. Alright, we are clear of the red line, then starting right, then left in that sequence. And right engine start.
November 3, Lima, holding short Lima 3 for Lufthansa 3 Alpha Romeo.
And somebody with an Arabian username. I'm sorry that I can't read that. What airline do I work for? I'm afraid that's not gonna be answered. And R2 missed dual start. No, can't do that with the GE90 engines. You can only do that with the Rolls-Royce and the Pratts. Okay, so pushback completed, set brakes. Brake set. So we'll have to taxi straight out and then probably via Yankee onto Lima or something. And Konali, Air Koyo. Yeah. And Sengel YT, is the A320 from Phoenix worth it? Yeah, absolutely. Alright, left engine start. Guys, no guessing about the airline, otherwise I'll have to delete those comments.
Lufthansa 3 Alpha Romeo, monitor Honeycomb on 2 decimal vorbei.
Honeycomb, monitor display for Lufthansa 3 Alpha Romeo, den schönen Abend, Chat.
Okay, so that looks like a good start on engine number 1.
Ground, good evening, caller for Mike Foxtrot, stand Victor 170, request startup.
And Xolrey, would I do more general aviation flying in the near future? Yeah, definitely. Okay, revised QNH 1016, we can copy that as well. And that's now set and checked. Right, so clear signal seen. We've got 2 good engine starts. After start procedure, please.
Aim from Lufthansa 9.
So, flaps 15 today. That's a little non-standard for us. Used to take off in flaps 5 most of the time. But that's the right setting over here. So, that's looking good. Flight control checks, please.
Request pushback, please.
Full up.
Full
down. Neutral.
Approve Air 1.
Full left. Full right. Neutral rudder. Full left. Full right. Neutral. Before taxi checklist. Anti-ice. Auto. Recall checked. Flight controls checked. Ground equipment clear. Before taxi checklist complete.
Clear to Dublin on block at 3 Mike departure, climb by Sid, flight level 70, squawk 1112, Shamrock 65 Charlie.
Shamrock 65 Charlie, is that correct?
German Cargo 472 Heavy, request taxi, and we are facing west, sorry. German Cargo 472, request taxi, and we're facing west, sorry. Am I not audible, or is the other guy just talking over it?
We're transmitting on guard.
Ah, okay. God, this... Why is it selecting guard when you go on flight? That's nonsense. Okay. At least I now know why he wasn't answering earlier.
Information Bravo is correct. Cleared Katowice Zulu 7 correct. Zulu 7 Sierra.
So, parking stands east, we'll need that one, and parking stands west.
Via SID 4,000 feet, squawk 6651.
Alright, so...
No worries. Departure 37 Sierra, checking 4,000 for 66 Russia 51. Lufthansa Juliet Hotel.
Lufthansa 8 Juliet Hotel, is that correct?
German Cargo 472, request taxi, and we are facing west, sorry.
I call you.
This time it was on the right frequency though. But he said he's gonna call us, so he's probably busy with something.
Victor 169, reservoir has engine start.
Ooh, look at that nice rainbow.
X-ray Lima, start up approved.
Start up approved, 1 X-ray Lima.
And Alpha 350, what are my thoughts on the 777X? I just hope the wings are never gonna fold on me when I'm flying it, if I'm flying it. And hi Metal Eye.
Cargo 472, runway 25 center, taxi via November North, November 17, November 15, for short of Lima.
German Cargo 472, taxi via November North, November 17, November 15, hold short Lima. Alright, so that sounded very complex. It basically means over here, left 180, November 15, hold short Lima. Right, lights on, right side clear, left side clear. Brakes released, let's go.
Charlie, hello, pushback approved, facing east.
Charlie, push approved facing east.
Hello, this is Charlie Sierra, Rome Papa Juliet, that's stand Victor 118, request via IFR clearance to Copenhagen, filed information Bravo on board.
And anti-cooperative, why is AeroLogic getting all of their new 777s on the DHL livery? Basically because they mostly do DHL operations. They do a little bit of operations for Lufthansa Cargo, but the vast majority is for DHL.
Charlie Sierra Romeo Papa Juliet, Maroon 8 Mike.
And remember, AeroLogic is owned by Lufthansa Cargo and DHL, so Lufthansa has something in their contracts that you can't have that Lufthansa logo on your aircraft if you're not on the Lufthansa contract, so that leaves the DHL livery.
Blocked.
Condor 4 Mike Foxtrot, stand Victor 170, request taxi.
Condor 4 Mike Foxtrot, runway 18, taxi via Lima, November 14 and November.
18 via Lima, November 14, November, Condor 4 Mike Foxtrot.
Lufthansa 9 Papa Kilo, ready for taxi.
Okay, so November 15 is going to be the second next on the right hand side, and then hold short of Lima. And N1 Aviator, would I ever want to fly for AeroLogic? Well, if I were to lose my current job, it would definitely be an option. But I would prefer the touristic destinations over the cargo destinations.
Wings 8 Mike Kilo, ready for taxi.
Wings 8 Mike Kilo, runway 25 center, taxi.
And then of course I would prefer the base Frankfurt over the base Leipzig.
Taxi to 25 center by November 3, hold short by Lima, Wings 8 Mike Kilo.
Okay, cool. So, hold short of Lima, which is going to be the line straight in front of us. Too bad. If 07 was active, we could just have been at the holding point here. And Charlie, what sort of techniques did I use to study for my Airbus type rating? Mostly
German cargo 472, taxi via Lima, hold short of Lima 3.
Taxi via Lima, hold short Lima 3, German cargo 472. Okay, Lima, hold short Lima 3. So, left and then pretty much all the way to the full length. Might be going a little bit fast right now, slowing down a bit. Okay, so yeah, which techniques did I use to study for my Airbus type rating? Mostly read and do. So,
continue via Lima, hold short of Lima 3.
I did use the Tolus A340 quite a lot for it, because it's similar to the A330. And then for a lot of the, especially SOP, I just, you know, started up the sim, read the chapters, did it in the sim, and that's how I remembered the SOPs.
We have just crossed the 5 center and holding short on Mike 10. November 10.
Yeah. Hold position, I'll call you for taxi.
Lufthansa 8 Juliet Coaster, ready for engine startup.
Lufthansa 8 Juliet Hotel, I call you.
And Alpha 350, yes, I'm using a TV as a monitor.
Continue via Lima, hold short of Lima 3.
Continue Lima, hold short by Lima 3, Wings 8 Mike Kilo.
Around Lufthansa Delta Charlie.
Lufthansa 12 Charlie, go ahead.
We have hold short November 10.
Okay, so is that guy parking on the taxiway there?
Charlie for taxi and we're at Lima 6.
Lufthansa 1 Victor Charlie, I call you.
No, he's just going very slow. Okay.
118-780 und danke nochmal. Wings 8 Mike Kilo, bye.
So, looks like tower just came online, 11878.
Wings 9 Papa Kilo, contact tower 118-780, bye-bye.
And AA Sergeant KK, is AeroLogic really accelerating at 1500? Honestly, I don't know. I left it in there because it is a little bit easier with the climb restrictions over the Wiesbaden airspace. WH, thank you so much for the 20 pound donation. Glad to see you streaming again. Thank you very much, my friends.
Ocean 1 X-Ray Lima, contact tower 124.855, bye.
11878.
And Bonner, how does my gaming TV fit on my desk? Well, that's quite easy. I have a 2-meter desk.
Lufthansa 1 Victor Charlie, runway 25 center, taxi via November 4 at short of Lima.
November 4 short of Lima, Lufthansa 1 Victor Charlie.
And Scappo, any plans for the C-130 and DCS? I'm afraid not, sorry.
Taxi via November and November 5.
So 1 taxi via Alpha and November 5, Lufthansa Delta Charlie.
From the 194 Gold Heavy, stand Bravo 24.
And WH, am I still using the mini cockpit FCU? At the moment not, because I wrecked my old monitor, where it nicely fit onto, and now it doesn't fit under my new monitor anymore, so I have to find a solution. Maybe a monitor stand or something the likes, but I don't have a solution for that just yet. Oh, was that a tail strike on the other runway there? Look at it. Or was it just the spray effect? Probably the latter. It looked a little bit like a tail strike.
Pushback approved facing east.
Okay, so to review the takeoff briefing. It's going to be a left seat takeoff runway 25 center. Flaps 15, noise abatement 2, back up at 1500. Speeds 152, 168, 172. And in case of an engine out, we continue straight at 25 miles, pick up a holding over there in 5,000 feet. MSA is 4,300 feet. In case we get to return, we are going to be above the max landing weight. We'll consider fuel dumping, but then again, Frankfurt is long enough that we can just do an overweight landing on the way back. That's not a problem at all. Alright, and that's about all I've got for the review of the takeoff briefing.
Lufthansa 1 Victor Charlie, you said you are able Lima 6?
AFM.
And somebody with a Chinese username, I think, might be Japanese as well. My apologies for not knowing that. How much distance do you need to keep? 118.78, John Cargo 472, just.
Lufthansa 1.
Lufthansa 1 Victor Charlie, Frankfurt.
So how much distance do we need to keep from the preceding aircraft? There is no written rule, but at some point you'll start smelling him, and then you know that you're too close. Frankfurt Tower, low, jump cargo 472 heavy, ready.
Jump cargo 472, Frankfurt Tower, low.
Okay, BE for takeoff checklist. BE for takeoff checklist complete.
Identified Langen 136, 130.
Okay, departure's on as well. I think it's 121.155 for us.
Lufthansa 8 Papa X-ray, wind 34 degrees, 4 knots, 25 right, clear to land.
Something like that.
Land 25 right, 8 Papa X-ray.
Lufthansa 4 Yankee, contact Langen on 120.155.
120.155, Lufthansa 4 Yankee.
Wings 8 Mike Kilo, the wind 34 degrees, 4 knots, runway 25 center, cleared for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff, 25 center, you think that Mike Kilo?
Asap, ask me that question about the imbalance when we're en route. There's just too much happening at the moment.
Runway 25 center behind departing company.
Line up to 5 center behind departing company, Lufthansa 9 Papa Kilo.
Alright, so we cleared into Lima 3, which is going to be not this one, but the next thereafter.
Out of intersection Lima 3, line up runway 25 center behind.
Lufthansa 1 Charlie behind the, just confirm the next departing Lufthansa lining up now. Line up away 25 center behind us, Lufthansa 1 Charlie.
Well, you have no other option because you turned into Lima 3.
The departure should pass now.
Okay. So we will, confirm line up now.
Well, if you line up now, that's gonna be expensive when that guy sets takeoff thrust. But good thing that he asked when he didn't know for sure. Right, what do we have here? New Atus, Charlie, pretty much unchanged.
Wings 8 Mike Kilo identified, contact Langen on 120.155.
For holding short of Lima 3.
You think that Mike Kilo, bye-bye.
And Charlie M, yes, this is most definitely a normal day in Frankfurt.
Copy.
Even though I have to say in the real world it's not as busy there. And WH, if you don't mind me asking, did you remove the mini cockpit video? No? Not that I'm aware of. And Savage Lol, what's my opinion on the Unibuild A330? Honestly, I like it. I think it's the best default aircraft ever. I mean, that bar isn't very high, but it is the best default aircraft ever. And it can do most of the SOP. So, yeah, I really like it.
Shamrock 65 Charlie, Frankfurt Tower, no, join Lima 1, expect some delay.
John Lima 1,
so, 1, 2, 3, and then we're probably number 4, unless that guy joining Lima 1 is gonna be asked in front of us. We'll see about it.
Tower low, Lufthansa 99 Whiskey, I left 25 left.
Lufthansa 99 Whiskey, Frankfurt Tower, low.
And Austrian 331 Charlie, I fully agree, CPDLC would be great in the A330. And Jetro, at least we don't have any delays on VATSIM, right? Oh yeah. Well, that's gonna be probably like 5 minutes or so if they are efficient. The problem is on VATSIM you never know if they are efficient.
So,
alright, that guy's going.
136.130.
136-1302.
This guy's joining Lima 1.
And
I think he has his lineup clearance already, so once he lines up, we can enter Lima 3.
Lufthansa 1 Victor Charlie identified Langen 120-155.
Ah, 120-154 was that departure frequency. Here we go.
Langen, hello, Ocean 1 X Lima.
And your favorite Rusty, am I using the Simulator default beta? No, I'm not, because the, as you say, the 777 doesn't work in it.
4 knots, runway 25 center cleared for takeoff.
And J380, I fully agree, a Felix Airbus A330 would be fantastic. You probably wouldn't see me fly anything else for a few months after that comes out. And Bonner, which throttle attachment am I using for non-Airbus aircraft on my Honeycomb Bravo? Still the Airbus throttles. I'm thinking if I should buy something new, but honestly, every aircraft has a different throttle set, and over the time it just gets expensive. And Flightbots, do I get a main thread problem on long hauls? I haven't had one yet. George, would I ever try X-Plane 12 again? The honest answer? No. At least not anytime soon. I had so much trouble with it. You know, then I tried to reinstall it and it would crash to desktop and all that stuff. So... probably not gonna use it anytime soon.
Lufthansa 9 Papa Kilo identified. Contact Langen on 120.155.
Alright, so into Lima 3.
German Cargo 472, join Lima 3, hold short of runway 25 center behind, next departing Boeing 737, line up runway 25 center behind.
German Cargo 472 Heavy, joining Lima 3, behind the departing next 737, line up runway 25 center behind. Okay, so... by the way, he did a classical flight simmer mistake. Look at where the intersection is, and look at how far he taxied. That's 100 meters of wasted runway.
25 center.
Don't do that.
361 Frankfurt Tower identified. The wind 34 degrees, 4 knots, runway 25.
That's really wasting runway.
Land, runway 25 right, Lufthansa.
So, still something in the comms down there? Let's cancel that ATIS. Here we go.
8 Alpha 38 with information. Charlie on board, request 5 Arclians to Lyon.
Lufthansa 46 Romeo, contact apron on 121.855.
11855 for Lufthansa 46
Okay,
Romeo.
so...
ready for departure.
Lufthansa 8 Juliet Hotel, Frankfurt Tower.
Busy over here.
Runway 18.
Lima 18, can Juliet Hotel.
Let's get those armrests down. Here we go. Nice. So, this guy touched. Now he should get takeoff clearance. And Ben Aura, could I do a video with the Delta simulation C-17 where I fly to Rammstein? Maybe. Actually, didn't I do a video with the C-17 and Rammstein already? I think I did. Alright, so we're clear to line up. The 737 is going. Transponder on, lights on. Runway 25 center is identified. Left side is clear.
Welcome to Frankfurt. Continue via Mike 30. Hold short of runway 25.
We'll go for weather on this side, terrain on this side. That way we've covered both of the possible threats on this departure. Alright, the gentleman is airborne. And we're ready for takeoff clearance any moment. Alright, and this is how you do the lineup on a runway like this. Waste as little space as possible.
The Lufthansa 194 Golf ready.
Lufthansa 494 Golf, Frankfurt Tower, join Lima 3 and on board, B for departure.
Lima 3, number 3, Lufthansa 194 Golf.
German cargo 472 with wind 34 degrees, 4 knots, runway 25 center, cleared for takeoff, no delay.
Runway 25 center, cleared for takeoff, German cargo 472 heavy. Okay, ready? Takeoff. Stabilized. Set takeoff thrust.
Yeah, Lufthansa 99 Whiskey, really sorry about that. I turned to the right and I'm taxiing now Mike to the east.
Lufthansa 99 Whiskey, no problem. Straight ahead, Mike 8, hold short of runway 25 center.
Checked.
Roger, straight ahead, Mike 8, hold short, runway 25 center.
Shamrock 6, corrections, Shamrock 65 Charlie, line up runway 25 center.
Line up 24 center, Shamrock 65 Charlie.
Lufthansa 8 Juliet Hotel, the wind 34 degrees, 4 knots, runway 18 cleared for takeoff.
18 to takeoff, Lufthansa Juliet.
Gear up. $400. Man, beautiful weather out there.
German cargo 472 identified, Langen 120155.
120155, German cargo 472. Langradar, schönen guten Abend, German cargo 472 heavy, passing 1800, climbing 5000.
Alright, change 7 over.
Flaps 5. Speed checked. Flaps 5.
Hello, Finner 1107 heavy, 25 left. FW107 still on radar, 118780.
I think there might have been some blocking previously. Flaps 1. Speed checked. Flaps 1.
Boeing, set your speed 170 knots for left.
170, that's Lufthansa for Yankee.
Langer low, drum cargo 472 heavy, 2500, climbing 5000.
German cargo 472, lang radar,
Flaps up.
climb flight level 13.
Speed checked. Flaps up. Climbing flight level 130, German cargo 472. Set. 130 checked. Okay, speed into vent and 255. So the flaps are up. And let's see, anti-ice is on auto. And after takeoff checklist. After takeoff checklist complete. Okay, lovely. Made it out of Frankfurt. So everything's set over here. A little bit of weather, but all green, so nothing to worry about. Set standard.
Radio check.
Standard cross check, passing flight level 51 now. Autopilot. So what's that on the comm page? Another ATIS. Cancel. Thanks. Okay, speed window is closed again. That way the plane now maintains 255 on its own.
Check 340 degrees, 4 knots, number 2.
Roger, Lufthansa for Yankee.
Very nice. Okay, so with that...
1107, wind 34 degrees 4 knots, runway 25 left, Airline.
Looking outside of my window, I can absolutely confirm that this is what the weather in Frankfurt currently looks like. Lovely. Absolutely lovely. Okay, so let's see.
Kind of 494 Golf radio check.
Another like 40 miles or so. So just a little bit of weather. All green, no problems. In the real world I do like to look outside a little bit, see if it gets brighter as we're climbing, approaching level 100, because if it does, sometimes I just maintain the airspeed so that we climb a bit faster out of the clouds, but right now, no real sense doing that in the sim. Alright, passing level 100. Lights are going off. Seatbelts are, well, we don't have passengers on board, but nonetheless, we need them to signal to our third crew member as well. But okay, so we're in the air now. I'm just waiting to get the handover to departure from our ATC or to radar controller, whoever is online at the moment. Over to Honeycomb, Drum Cargo 472. Looks like his audio died. Alright, 1228, and well, then we have a little bit more time right now. So let's go ahead and climb up to flight level 250, which is the boundary to the upper airspace, and then we can quickly check down here in the FMS. So recommended flight level is 280, optimum 298. Sometimes this thing is a little bit low, so what we'll do is to actually climb up to level 300 as planned. Then let's just do another wind data request to be sure that we have the latest data on board. And, well, when that is done, we are going to punch on some time acceleration to actually make it to our destination, you know, before tomorrow morning. And Charlie M, which Oceanic will I enter the North Atlantic from, and when will the RCL message be sent? Well, that's one of the many things that we are going to check once we are up at cruise level. But first of all, we actually got to get there, so since there is no ATC over here, we gotta have a good look at any possible traffic, and then we can go FS Actions, Auto Cruise, and just punch on a little bit of sim rate here. Let's do 4x. And since there is no center at the moment at all, let's also go ahead and take a little shortcut here, directing to Budip. So, Budip direct. And here we go, getting out of the clouds. A little bit of cloud surfing left. And then we're out of it. Okay, so up to flight level 300, which is our cruising level. We gotta have a good eye on any other traffic. And I think this is a good moment just to talk a little bit. Look at those clouds. Looks like I'm in hyperspace, doesn't it? I think this is a good moment to talk a little bit about how time acceleration works and how that is permitted when flying on the VATSIM network. So the Code of Conduct has a couple of very easy sections about that. Number one, you must not impede the experience of any others. That means if we are getting close to any other aircraft, it's us who has to avoid the other aircraft. Even if we would normally have the right of way, if we are using acceleration, we have to avoid the others. The other thing is that we must exit time acceleration before we enter the airspace of any controller, or latest when we get a contact me, in case we don't notice them. So if any controller sends us a contact me, we go out of time acceleration immediately, And then we are allowed to ask that controller if we can resume time acceleration. It's up to the controller if they allow it or not. In my experience, there are a couple controllers who deny it outright because they don't think it's realistic and they think it's up to them to determine what's realistic to others without any actual purpose. With most controllers, however, they are going to allow time acceleration as long as you don't get in the way of any other aircraft. So some have, for example, asked me if I could change my altitude because there is another aircraft along the route. So that way, some controllers make some provisions, others don't. But that is how you are allowed to use time acceleration on the network. And of course, you are not allowed to leave your computer at all when you're flying with time acceleration on VATSIM. So you know that normally you are allowed to leave, at least for a certain amount of time. With acceleration, you must be there all the time. Right, so back to 1X as we are just reaching cruise altitude, as we do have a couple of checks to do. So, starting down here on the flight plan. We've reached the top of climb 17 minutes after becoming airborne. We are supposed to reach it 18 minutes after, that's good. We should have 83.1 tons of fuel on board. We have 85.9, so we're 2.8 tons ahead on the plan. So, arriving at 0036, the schedule is 0050, so we are 14 minutes ahead of time. 11.9 tons of fuel expected on the arrival, and 7.3 is the minimum, so we have roughly 25 minutes of extra fuel on board. Okay, so then we got to check our Oceanic entry, and for that let's pick up our en route map, and over here we can see that we're entering Oceanic airspace in the Shanwick FIR. That means 90 minutes ahead of the entry, we gotta send the RCL message. So ETILO is the entry. Now let's have a look into the FMS route data page and find ETILO. Here it is, 1623. It's now 1458, so basically we can already send that RCL message since we are already within... Or are we? No, we're not. I'm too stupid to do math. Yes, we are. So right now we could already send the RCL message. So we go to the com page. Right now there is no associated controller online, but here's how it would work. So you go to flight information, Oceanic clearance request. Now ATC facility, Echo Golf Golf X-ray, Shanwick. And now let's have a look. So at ETILO, we are planned to be in flight level 300, so let's type that in, level 300. We are doing Mach 0.83 over here, which we can already set hard as well. So Mach 0.83, enter that over here. Then we are estimating ETILO at 1623. Come on, 1623. And it's ETILO. Okay, so we are not flying on a track, therefore we don't need any TMI or anything the likes. And free text, maximum flight level. Let's see, now it's already 330, so let's send max flight level 330. Alright, like that. So it's Gem Cargo 472, ATC facility Shanwick, ETILO is the entry point, flight level 300, ETA 1623, Mach 0.83 and maximum level 330. And send. Now there is not going to be any response here, as far as I'm aware, so that's basically it. Alright, one other thing that I quickly want to do, since we still get all those departure ATISs. Let's go flight information, ATIS request. Now we need Echo Delta, Delta Foxtrot, VATSIM, auto, terminate. And send. This way we no longer get all of those things. Alright, good. And that's everything done. Nice. Now up here we are, yeah, somewhat riding the tops, but it's okay. Turn the seatbelt sign auto for the time being. And then let's turn on a little bit of time acceleration once again. Little bit, meaning 8x. So now flying 8 times speed. That way we should be at the top of descent in an hour and a bit. Alright, so now let's get back to the chat and to answering some questions. There will be a couple more things that we'll have to do, but we'll be dealing with those when the time comes. So one aircraft down there, 1,000 feet above, not gonna be any problem for us. Okay, cool. So John Jacobs, after an 8-hour flight, the wind forecast data remains unchanged even when I refresh SimBrief. Is there a way to force an update or resync the forecast? No, it always takes the wind that you receive from SimBrief at the time the plan is made up, as far as I'm aware, not the live wind data. So I think therefore you cannot really change it, but might be mistaken about that. But I think that's how it works. So, Landing No Blue, asking, if a new study level plane releases and you don't know how to fly it realistically, how would you learn it? I would Google for the flight manuals of the real aircraft. And then, well, do what you do with the flight manual. AKA, take the standard operations chapter and start working on it. So, start clicking all the procedures. I do like to click them all a little bit in just groundwork without actually flying, in order to get a little bit more fluent on the procedures actually. That's something that I like to do, but I totally understand that, yeah, altitude, it's okay, it's going to regain it, no problem, there's no traffic around. Apropos no traffic, let's switch those T-classes to below. And here we go. Yep, copied, thanks. Alright, great. So, yeah, generally, I Google for the flight operations manual of the real-world aircraft, and then that's how I'm learning how to fly the new study-level aircraft in the sim. And it's working pretty well. That's also what I base all of my tutorials on. Likewise, if the developer has a good manual, such as those from Black Square, I do love to use those as well. And Guaten Morton, how do I get the announcements of the runway and stuff like that? That's an add-on called VRAS by Land 3 Simulations. RAS stands for Runway Advisory and Awareness System, and it's basically doing that. It advises you when you're entering a runway. It's also capable of displaying the text on your PFD, on your ND, for example. Yeah, and it also has a couple of other features as well, like the ability to make announcements of your, like the ability to do announcements if you're too fast, if you're too high, unstable approaches, that kind of stuff. So, pretty cool thing. Now, Quacklock, what's my opinion on the Inibuild's Airbus A340? I honestly don't even know where to start. I'm super happy to see them do that airplane. It's a plane that I will absolutely be flying a lot. I'm sure it's going to be great based on the experience with the A350. And, well, now I'm really looking forward to how Inibuilds is going to do it. The one thing that I am a little bit afraid of is, of course, the frame rate, because Inibuilds has historically proven to, well, let's say not optimize their aircraft very well. On the other hand side, when I tried the Sim Update 4 beta, the performance improvement was magnificent. I had like 4 times the frame rate with the A350. So I'm kinda hoping that that's eventually going to fix the performance problems with Inibuild's aircraft. But yet again, those problems definitely do exist, and I hope that they will eventually be tackled. Apart from that, really looking forward to the airplane, especially the EIS-1 layout, as I'm kinda hoping that once IndyBuild has developed those, we are going to see updates of the A320 family as well with the older gauges, and I'm personally secretly hoping that they will eventually do an A330. I'm secretly hoping for it. I mean, we have their A330 already, it is great, it really is. You know, you could absolutely sell that airplane for $50 as a third-party add-on, and we're getting it for free. That's fantastic. It's really fantastic. But, then again, I definitely see some room for improvement in that A330, and I do note that that improvement is not done with any sim updates. In fact, they have actually removed some of the improvement that we got with the first sim update again, and reverted back to the original, which, in my opinion, strongly suggests that after the A340 and the A380, they're probably going to do an A330 professional upgrade or something the likes. And honestly, I would be absolutely happy to pay for that. I really would. Now, Metal Eye, how would I compare the Cibo with the Braddock 737? Yeah, I think Cibo compared to Braddock is ultimate study level. Absolutely no questions there. And CG, I agree, we do need a study level 787. And I do hope that, you know, it'll take some time until we'll eventually get one. There's no doubt it will take some time. But when it's gonna come, then either PMDG or Bluebird. We'll see, Bluebird hasn't released anything just yet, so I don't want to comment on how good or not something might be of that company. They do say a lot, but we'll see once they deliver. I do hope that it's gonna be good. But let's face it, when they do the 757 now, it takes them a year at the minimum to put out the 767 later, and whatever comes later, we'll see. We'll absolutely have to see. Okay, traffic there, 800 below, no problem. We can keep the time acceleration. Just look at the beautiful Scotland down here. And set 928, what is the last route that I did in real life? You're gonna love Palma de Mallorca. Yes, on the A330. And prior to that, Las Vegas. Okay, so we're approaching the North Atlantic entry. Let's go back to real time here for a second. So auto cruise and reset the sim rate. Because there are a couple of preparations that we gotta do for the oceanic part of our flight. So let's actually start by getting ourselves some weather and by getting ourselves a flight plan. So, ETOPS is only going to start by the time we pass Keflavik, so we have a little bit of time for that. But the thing that we do need to do and check is the tracks and distances of our oceanic route. So, let's get our EFB up here. We would also ensure that our oceanic clearance is correctly entered by now. So, we've got the Mach number here with 0.83. We've got our step altitudes, respectively our cleared oceanic level, which is level 300 for us right now, as we've sent it in the track request, or rather in the RCL message. Okay, so now we are going to compare all the tracks and distances, and we are actually using true heading for that. The only question is, I have absolutely no idea if SimBrief also uses true heading for that, but I suppose we are about to find out. So, from Etilo to 61 north and 20 degrees west, it's a track of 309 and the distance 371, so that's correct, and confirmed down here. Then we move on to 64.5 north 30 west, track 311 and distance 345, and down here we got 312, 345, so good enough. Then we continue on to 66.5 north 40 west, track 300, distance 276, and we got track 300, distance 276. Then it's on to 68 north 50 west, and that's with a track of 295, distance 249, versus 296, 249, again, close enough. Alright, then we move on to 68 north 60 west, that's track 274, distance 225, and here we got 265 and 225, and then on to Canal, which is 267 degrees, 17 miles, and we also have that. Alright, and that's our route cross-checked already. Now, once we are Oceanic, we can consider flying a slop or not. Not up for decision just yet. And apart from that, we've checked the route. I'm going to keep the true heading already, because we'll need that for the crossing anyway. And thereafter for the northern northern Canadian airspace. So that's good. And the last thing that I will do is to collect a little bit of weather. So let's put that tablet away again. So now in the real world we will go to the company menu and then to the weather menu in there, because over there we could request several airports at once. Unfortunately, PMDG for some weird reason decided to model a TWIP request, which any 777 pilot that I've talked to has never heard of that feature even existing. But yeah, I suppose that's the only option PMDG leaves us. So we are gonna use Echo Golf. What's Glasgow again? Because that's kind of the first airport that we've got on this side of the pond still. So Glasgow should be down there. Come on, Echo Golf Papa Kilo. No, that's Prestwick, that's not Glasgow. Come on, Glasgow is nearby, isn't it? Up here. Echo Golf Papa Fox, okay, easy going. So, Echo Golf Papa Fox, we'll take that from VATSIM, and we'll just do a single request, send. Then we're gonna get Keflavik, Bravo India Kilo Fox, single request on VATSIM, send. Then I am gonna go and get Sondrestrom Fjord, single request on VATSIM, send. Then we will get Frozen Bay, Charlie Yankee Fox Bravo, and send that one as well, and that pretty much covers the entire North Atlantic there. So that's a lot of messages we just received, so let's start. We'll start over here with Glasgow, and that one's close enough that we just need the METAR and not the TAF. As you can see, the METAR is totally fine over here, perfect flying weather, so we can cancel that one. Now, next, Keflavik. Let's see, we'll be crossing Keflavik, well, in the real world at about 20 UTC. So looking into here, good weather conditions all over the place from 1600. Yeah, beautiful weather. Okay, and then we can just check the METAR as well, which is beautiful as well, so Keflavik is usable. Cool, then we've got a couple more. So we have Sondrestrom, which has wonderful weather conditions. So that one is usable on Greenland if we absolutely need it. So let's check that one. And of course the Sondrestrom TAF is beautiful as well. So Sondrestrom is gonna stay good for our crossing. Alright, and then we got Frozen Bay, TAF. And, well, that's absolutely splendid over here as well. Only tomorrow is when the weather is going to deteriorate a little. Not going to be a problem for us. So the weather is good everywhere. Lovely. Alright, cool. So now that we checked this, I am going to go down here. Fixed rings, Echo, Golf, Papa, Fox. So Glasgow, 410 mile ring. and then Keflavik, also 410-mile ring, like this, just to mark our alternate airports, and like that we can enter the Atlantic now. So, with all that good stuff done, I think we can continue on. So let's go down here, menu, FS Actions, Auto Cruise, and increase our sim rate back to 8x. Like this. Of course, in the real world we would pay especially close attention to our arrival time at Etilo. Remember, we filed for 1623, and now we're estimating 1624. Always use the time from the FMS, by the way, unless you're really close to the waypoint, because the time indicated on the nav display up here is based on the present wind conditions, while the time in the FMS on the route data page is based on the forecast wind conditions. So if you're looking far in the future, then always look down in the FMS and never look at the nav display. Alright, cool. And that's that stuff done, so with that we can now enter the North Atlantic airspace. Beautiful flying conditions, by the way. They're kind of stuck inside the cirrus layer over here, but it doesn't seem to come with any turbulence, so easy going for us. Alright, and as we're approaching and overflying Etilo, there are, of course, once again a few things that we can do. So let's just go back to real time once more. So, first things first, entering the North Atlantic. Slop. Do we need any slop? Let's face it, we're flying a random track, so we don't really need it. But for the sim I like to show off, so let's go offset, 1 right. Okay, right 1. And execute. And now we're going a mile offset to the right. The idea behind that is that if everyone is flying a mile to the right, then even if ATC completely messes up and you would collide with oncoming traffic, there would be 2 miles between you, at least. Okay, cool. So, that way we are now maintaining a constant Mach number, we are turning onto the slop, we've checked all the weather, very good. And like that, we can continue along our way. Now 10 minutes past entering the Atlantic, starting the timer over here. Once that one reaches 10 minutes, we're going to reset our squawk to 2000. And then let's re-enter our time acceleration, so back to 8x. Okay, looking into the chat, Andrea de Tongi, do you know when we have the new update of the 737 by PMDG? I don't know any time, no, sorry. Now, Thiago Santos, hi, nice to see you. I'm about to start my type rating in a couple of weeks in a Lufthansa Group company. What would you recommend to study and prepare prior to starting the type rating? Well, since you are probably a flight simmer, I suppose otherwise you wouldn't be on this video, I would say just take a simulation of that airplane type that you are going to fly and, you know, just make yourself, like, generally familiar with that airplane type. I guess that's probably the best thing to do here. Alright, and we cancelled those ATISs, didn't we? Let's do that one more time. Echo Delta Delta Foxtrot. ATIS VATSIM terminate. Send. Alright, we're now 10 minutes into the ocean. That means we can go to Squawk 2000. And then we are monitoring 1 to 1.5. COM1 is going to be 12345, which is the air-to-air frequency for pilots. And on that, you know, we're talking about turbulence reports at different flight levels and that kind of stuff. So that's what you normally use the 12345 for when you are crossing the Atlantic. It's basically mandatory to monitor. And then with some aircraft, think for example old Airbus A330s, you would also have to click away the data on your third COM, like that, because if the plane is trying to use VHF data link over the Atlantic, don't do it in Boeings by the way, but if it's trying to use VHF data link over the Atlantic, it's obviously not going to send or receive anything, which can lead to timeouts with air traffic control with the CPDLC communication. And since you obviously don't want that, you just detune the data frequency, and with that you force the ACARS system to use the SATCOM or the internet that's fitted on board the aircraft. Another COM message. Another ATIS. So there is probably a bug there, that we can't deselect the automatic ATIS updates. Okay, so noted. So, a couple of questions that came in the meantime. Metal Eye, do all airliners use the offset? Many of them, yes. Basically, you must conduct slop, but you can decide not to offset in a slop. For example, when you're flying a northerly route like we are right now on a random track and not even following the NAT, then you could decide to stay on the center line. Likewise, when I'm looking at my TCAS, I see absolutely no traffic in my vicinity. I might decide to stay on the center line. You know, that kind of stuff. We definitely, we have to apply slop, but since the S stands for strategic, we can also decide that our strategy is to stay on the center line for now. That may also make sense if you've got other aircraft above you on the same track, which are already offsetting to the right. You want to try to keep aircraft above you that are flying in the same direction on your right hand side, so that if they suffer a decompression, they're not going to descend into you. And I mean, since we are flying in flight level 300 here due to our weight, it would absolutely make sense for us to stay on the center line if another aircraft was above us. So then, Artemis, wouldn't you use HF frequencies now? Yes, absolutely. Roundabout when you're overflying the entry point into the North Atlantic, you would get the HF frequency for Shanwick from the domestic controller, and then you would call them like Shanwick radio, German cargo 472, cell call check, Reykjavik next. And then they would tell you the backup frequency if the prior domestic controller hasn't done that yet. They basically got to tell it to you again anyway. Then they do the cell call check, then you reply cell call okay, secondary, whatever the frequency is, and that's it. So Melvin, at this particular point, if an emergency occurs, where would you fly to? So right now we are closest to Reykjavik, which is over here, respectively Keflavik Airport. So that's where we would divert to. Obviously it would depend on the type of emergency as well. If we just had a normal engine failure, heck, we are 2 hours 30 minutes away from Frankfurt. We might as well fly back to Frankfurt. And that way it just depends on the type of emergency you have. In many cases, let's say you are on a typical North Atlantic route that's taking you somewhere across here. So typical North Atlantic tracks. Then you might as well just not land anywhere over here, but you might as well fly on to Halifax if the medical condition of the passenger makes it possible. But we've got satellite telephone in the aircraft, so we have a SATCOM, and we would just call a company that has specialized on doctors in the air. So basically there is a company that would give us that type of advice. Alright, so the airplane says recommended flight level 320. So let's go up. And ACAS production, FGEEK, is my call sign German Cargo 472? Yes, it is. And SIAF 320, no, time acceleration is absolutely not prohibited on Unicom. It's only when you are inside an active airspace, then you need a controller's permission. Otherwise, you can absolutely use it on Unicom. And Boeing 757-200 asks, what do you think of the 757? Well, I'm sad to see them go. Condor is phasing them out at the end of the season. And fuel low center. Let's turn the center pumps off. Condor is phasing them out at the end of the season, and with that the last 757s in Europe, as far as I'm aware, are gonna be gone. So I think it's a magnificent airplane, but it's also quite a bit behind the technology nowadays. So I'm pretty sure most of the 757 pilots at the moment will be happier when they transition to a new airplane type. Of course, there is a little bit of Airbus versus Boeing going on there. So some will say, no, anything that's not a Boeing is not for me. But I think from a comfort point of view, after all, you're at work, so you want some comfort. From a comfort point of view, you absolutely will prefer the Airbus. And A337Z. An interesting thing I was wondering earlier, are there times in real life where ATC stations are offline like on VATSIM? Is top-down controlling a thing in reality? No, top-down is not a thing in reality. At least not in terms that a radar controller would suddenly cover a tower. That wouldn't happen. But of course there are stations that are not online or that are not staffed all the time. For example, during my initial line training at my former company, we flew into Pisa, and at some point I heard in the real world on the radio, all stations, Pisa ground is closing, contact tower on frequency XYZ. And I had to laugh pretty hard in that cockpit. The training captain couldn't understand at all why I was laughing at that communication, but yeah. But normally you have ATC everywhere in the real world, and if not, then you're not flying into that airspace. An exception to that is Africa, because in Africa many ATC stations only have a single antenna, which is normally located somewhere in their capital city. And that antenna does not always reach their FIR boundaries. So let's have a look at the map once again. Let's say you're flying southbound here to Cape Town. You enter Algeria, you have very good ATC all the way until about here, and that's where their last antenna is somewhere over here. So down here the VHF communication is deteriorating a little. Then they eventually hand you off to Niamey, and chances are you will not be talking to them at all, because their antenna is down here. Remember, VHF works via line of sight communication, so that basically means that you have about 200 nautical miles for air to ground communications and about 400 nautical miles for air to air communications, because of the curvature of the Earth. Take that, flat earthers. So when you're crossing Niamey up here, you will probably not be talking to them, but you have CPDLC. So provided that they accept your login, which is not always the case, you are going to be in CPDLC contact. And if they don't accept your login, yeah, fuck it. you just fly through it because you know they have those problems. Then the next one, not exactly sure how that station is called again. Can we actually see that when we zoom in? On the Lido charts we use in the real world, it's written on the actual FIR. But okay, over here it isn't on the Jefferson charts. See, that's why I prefer Lido. Yeah, up here, you're not going to receive them either. You got to fly like 80 miles or so into that direction, then you're finally going to be able to receive them. Similar down here at the border, down here. Well, that one's good because you've got Brazzaville right over here, provided they answer, which is not always the case. I have a feeling when they go for a dump, they're not taking a handheld radio, like they are in some other African cases. Yeah, and then Luanda, yeah, the first 80 miles or so inside the FIR don't necessarily work. Windhoek is very good, they actually have a radar again, so with Windhoek you don't need to worry, and then you're already in South Africa anyway. So yeah, that's Africa. That's the only region in the world where I would say you might as well have VATSIM like ATC. Apart from that, it normally doesn't happen that you don't have ATC available. And if you've got, you know, any, let's say, larger commercial airports, then if the ATC station fails, the airport's closed. That's the end of it. You would never just taxi out to the runway and take off if you don't get answers from ATC anymore. You would take your mobile phone and give them a call. Okay, so the next waypoint is the boundary into Greenland already, and Greenland is something we gotta be careful with because of high mountains over there. So if we switch on the terrain display, we can easily see terrain reaches up to 10,700 feet. That means in case of an emergency descent, we gotta be careful here. Descent down to 13,000 at first, make it 14,000, then you account for any possible low temperature correction, and yeah, thereafter leave Greenland and then descend down to 10,000 in case of decompression. Alright, so we're about to leave the we're about to enter the ETOPS area of this flight. So let's go down here, start drawing our circles. So entry from Keflavik. Simbrief always takes 442 miles for the 777. That's too much. 410 is what most real-world operators are using. And then we got the ETP, 590 miles out. So let's go down here and draw a 590 mile ring. And then we go back here, frozen base, 615. So Charlie Yankee Fox Bravo /410 and /615. Alright, and that's the first ETOPS section of our flight. We still have some very fresh weather. In the real world it wouldn't hurt to get some new ones if the ATIS suggests that changes could be expected. In our situation here in the sim, that's not happening because we're flying at 8x acceleration. So entering Greenland now. Unfortunately we see nothing, like it is mostly in the real world as well. You really got to be fortunate to be able to see something of Greenland. But what you do not need to be fortunate for is to use those, which we are pretty much using like 95% of the flight. So let's actually get our sunshades in place over here. Now the winter is coming, and that means the sun is going to go really low when we are flying at these high latitudes, until eventually you're actually going to be in nighttime when you're flying along here. So yeah, sunshades absolutely necessary. You might even just take your paper checklist if you are forced to have a backup. Like, well, on the Airbus we do use the EQRH app by Airbus, but for some certain emergencies, our authority still forces us to keep a paper backup of like 5 or 6 cases, mostly involving fires. And yeah, for that you can use that paper QRH, hang it over the sunshade, and that keeps the sun out pretty well. And John Jacobs, are the South African ATCs any good? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm not sure how they would do if they suddenly had the amount of traffic that we see in Frankfurt or Heathrow, but for what they do, they're pretty okay. For African standards, they're actually, of course, among the better ones. And my Chinese friend, do the fuel temperatures matter here? Yes, absolutely, but since we're in summertime right now, we are probably going to be flying in very, very warm temperatures. So normally in summer you have like ISA plus 10 to ISA plus 15 in the polar areas. Let's see if the 777 tells us that. Indeed it does. So over here, SAT minus 48. ICAO standard would be something about minus 50, minus 52 or so at this altitude. I think minus 52. So yeah, temperatures are actually fairly good at the moment. And we can see our fuel temperature is currently minus 2. The limit for us is minus 44. That's 3 degrees above the freezing point of minus 47 of the Jet A1 fuel that we're using here. If you've loaded fuel in the US, then it's minus 37, because the Jet A fuel they use has a freezing point at minus 40 degrees. Oh, look at that, we can actually see a little bit of Greenland. But just like in the real world, you don't see much. When you're flying across the coasts of Greenland, it looks fantastic with all the mountains there. But the center of Greenland, always covered by ice, and normally it's completely white. You can't tell if it's an overcast cloud cover or if it's snow that you're looking at. AirDog, hi. How do you determine the distance for ETOPS rings on the fix page for Boeing and Airbus? You take them from the flight plan. So the first ring is always the 1 hour ring. That marks the area where you enter the ETOPS. And then you just draw a ring where you've got the equal time point. So over here we have the equal time point between Keflavik and Frozen Bay. Okay, Iqaluit is the real name of the airport. I like to call it Frozen Bay, because it's always frozen down there. And that's based on the 590 miles from Keflavik and 615 miles from Frozen Bay. And that's the second ring, respectively the equal time point that we have overflow. So, Sonderstrom is down here should we need it. But if we can avoid it, we're not gonna go there. Oh, and look at this. Nice. So, here's the other half of Greenland. And yeah, this is an awesome view in the real world. This is an absolutely awesome view. Really is. Really, really is. I mean, this looks incredible in the sim already. Now imagine this in the real world. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. When we're flying across here, my face is usually glued to the window. And landing no blue, what would you do if the fuel falls below the freezing point? Well, there are a couple things you can do. For once, you can fly a little bit lower to raise the temperatures. You can fly faster to raise the temperatures. But honestly, in most cases, it's not really gonna matter. That is an A330 point of view, though. On the A330, the fuel in the outer wing tanks is always going to be colder than the fuel in the inner wing tanks. And since the inner tanks are feeding the engines, if the fuel in the outer tanks falls below the freezing point for a little time, yeah, then in the worst case you might not be able to transfer fuel. Okay, so be it. You will eventually get into warmer airspace again before your landing, so then you can transfer it. Okay, so now that we've passed Greenland, let's get that sunshade back in place. Probably might have to move that one a little bit left as well. Okay, and we are approaching the end of the North Atlantic airspace at Canal over here. That's where we would change over to Edmonton. And Edmonton is a pretty interesting airspace to fly through. Because what they do over in Edmonton is that they usually don't talk to you at all. It's completely CPDLC, even though you are monitoring a voice frequency, a VHF frequency. But all that happens is that you get monitor frequency XYZ. So you tune the frequency active, but you never call in. You never check in. And since the entire area is covered by the same CPDLC station, you basically fly for like 3 hours without doing a single call on the radio and without receiving anything on CPDLC, except for, let's say, every half an hour a new frequency to monitor. Lovely to fly through, because there's nothing happening at all. I tell you honestly, those flights on these northern airways here, especially when you enter Oceanic airspace through Reykjavik and not through Shanwick, so incredibly relaxed. So incredibly relaxed. Really, really nice to fly through. Alright, so we are quickly going to exit the time acceleration, because we're now approaching the end of the North Atlantic airspace. So a couple of things that we need to do over here. First of all, since we had been using a slop, we got to remove that. There's two ways to do that. If you're flying on a published North Atlantic track, I would recommend to go delete the offset, and then just execute. That way you return to the center line. If you're not flying on a published North Atlantic track, and this is kind of personal technique, you are not going to find that in the manuals, then what I do is just to take it direct to the next waypoint again, and that way we take the slope out, or the slop out gradually. So like that, I've now given myself direct to 68 north, 60 west. Now you can see we just do a very shallow turn compared to doing like a 10-degree bank turn to the left, then a 10-degree bank turn to the right. Your passengers start thinking that you're drinking up there. You know, makes it a little bit nicer here. In the real world, with that bank angle, passengers are not even going to notice. So, in about an hour we are going to re-enter ETOPS airspace, so let's go ahead and grab a couple of pieces of weather there. So first of all, cancel that. I want to try one more attempt at getting rid of that, by the way. ATIS request, EDDF, VATSIM, auto terminate, and what happens if we remove the auto again? I think I might be tricking it right now. Or I'm going to cause a WASM crash. We'll see. Alright, so let's just get Frozen Bay. Oh, come on. So let's just get Frozen Bay again. For that, an ATIS is fine. Send. And then we also need to get the TAF for Edmonton. Charlie Yankee Echo Golf. Single request, VATSIM, and send. So that's a little bit of weather coming our way. Yeah, Frankfurt, cancel, thank you. Okay, so Frozen Bay, ATIS Alpha at 1700 Zulu. Wind 320 at 16, visibility over 10, clouds few 500, few 600, broken 25,000, temperature 4, altimeter 2977. Alright, so Frozen Bay is superb. And then let's have a look at Edmonton. Excellent weather conditions, temperature 20 degrees, beautiful. And the Edmonton TAF is just that good. Alright, perfect. So, since we have another ETOPS area there with Edmonton, let's go ahead and enter that. So, Charlie Yankee Echo Golf /410. And then we also need the rings. So, Frozen Bay is 815 miles outbound. So, /815. Here we go. And then we need the inbound, that's 732. And here we go. Alright, so that's about as much setup as we could do. Now we've just overflown 68 north, 60 west, so might as well chime in a fuel check. So 60 west, 4 hours 55 airborne, and we're here at 4 hours 52, so we saved a bit of time. And we should have 43.5 tons of fuel. We have 46.3, so we are like 3 tons up on the fuel, which is just about perfect. Lovely. Alright, cool. And that was about everything we had to do up here. I am going to maintain the heading reference to true, because we are flying through the Northern Canadian airspace. And, well, with that, let's go back into time acceleration. So FS actions, auto cruise, increase, 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 and here we go, back to 8x. Now, someone's asked in the comments, Alessandro, when would you use the true versus magnetic north? Now, there are basically 2 instances for this. One of them is when you're flying at very high latitudes. So, basically when you're flying above about, what is it, 72 north, I believe? Yeah, I think it's 72 north. And when you're flying in a certain area in the Northern Canadian airspace. So, the reason why I'm not 100% sure about those numbers is because in my company it's SOP to use it at any time when you're flying Oceanic. And since the entire area up here is Oceanic anyway, we would be using it in any case, regardless at how far to the north we are. Even when we're flying down here, close to the Caribbean at 30 north, once we're inside New York, you do use it. And then when you're flying in Northern Canadian airspace, there is, at least on the Lido charts, there is a very nice red line marking the Northern Canadian airspace. Unfortunately, it looks like the Jefferson charts don't have that, but it goes somewhere over here, I believe. Like somewhere over there at that corner. And when you're flying north of that, you need to use it as well. The reason for that is because the magnetic North Pole is currently somewhere over here. It might actually have passed the pole already. By 2050 it's going to be on the Russian side. And because the magnetic North Pole is so far away from the true North Pole, your indicated headings are going to be almost nonsense. For this reason, we are using the true north function over here, which solves that problem. Alright, Northern Canada. And this is what it's going to look like for like the next 3 hours or so. And I tell you honestly, I really enjoy those views. It's a totally different world from what you're used to from flying in Europe. And Charlie M, yeah, Iceland Air actually used Frozen Bay a few days ago as an ETOPS diversion. It is a sensible airport to go into with those aircraft types that Iceland Air operates. You can land there with your heavies as well. You could easily put a 777 down there. But the problem is, how are you going to get those passengers on if you are flying a passenger aircraft? How are you going to get maintenance? That's the problem. That's why it's often easier not to divert to the nearest airport, but to the nearest suitable airport. Of course you might be able to land there, but is it the best decision to make? At least if you've got like Halifax within an hour flight time? You know, that's the kind of stuff that we are considering when flying in these absolutely remote areas of the world. Like, imagine a passenger having a medical issue now. Where are you gonna go? Frozen Bay is the nearest airport, but do they have medical facilities there? Probably not many. And Bennett Walters, my thoughts on X-Plane 12. Let's put it that way. My main problem with X-Plane is that it does not look very good. Even if you've got aircraft where the developers really put effort in it, think the Hotstar Challenger, the sim just makes them look bad in my opinion. There are some views where it can look good, but you know, when you get in there, you have the same view that I have right now. I think X-Plane is not looking very good, and for me visuals make a great part of the simulation. Yes, X-Plane has a better flight model and physics engine. There is no doubt that X-Plane is better there. But the plane might fly a little bit more accurate, but if it doesn't look good, then I don't know, it's not immersive for me, and it needs to be. I'd rather have a plane that flies a little bit worse, and let's be honest here, with our consumer-grade hardware that we are using, it does only fly a little bit worse in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Things might change if you use $10,000 hardware, then X-Plane will surely show its beautiful flight model. But with the consumer-grade hardware that we're using down here, I don't actually notice too much of a difference. Like when I tried the Cibo 737 with my Thrustmaster Boeing yoke, honestly, it did feel a little bit different from the PMDG, but not very much. That may be different if I had a real Boeing yoke here, but I don't, and I probably never will, because I'd rather spend the 30,000 bucks it costs, you know, to, I don't know, buy myself a nice car or something the likes. So, yeah, that basically means that that X-Plane is not very attractive to me. Okay, and it looks like Edmonton actually just came online. So let's reset that sim rate and let's call Edmonton. So 135025. And does he have CPDLC? Well, suppose we're gonna find out. So 35025, and that's Charlie Zulu Echo Golf. So ATC, log on, Charlie Zulu Echo Golf. And here we go. Edmonton, good afternoon, German Cargo 472 Heavy, level 320. No response. Edmonton, German Cargo 472 Heavy, level 320. No answer. Well, let's send him a quick message. Private chat, doing that off screen of course. Actually, tell you what, let's have a very quick look at VATSIM, doing that one off screen. And Yeah, apparently he can hear me, but I can't hear you. And I tell you what, since the FMS already suggests level 340 is recommended level, I will request that with him as well. But he seems a little slow to respond. Can't hear him on voice, and yeah guys, I did already try to disconnect and reconnect. Actually, let me quickly restart vPilot overall. Maybe it helps. But the comms in vPilot show me that I'm actually connected to the voice server. They did turn blue. Ah, now we can hear something.
Air 963, good day to you.
That sounds better.
Code is 0735. 07.
Edmonton German Cargo 472 radio check.
German Cargo 472 Heavy, Edmonton Center. How do you read?
Read you 5, German Cargo 472.
Oh, that's excellent. Squawk code for you is 2576.
Squawk 2576, German Cargo 472. Okay, 2576.
Edmonton Center, Air Canada 59 Lima, raise taxi with Delta.
Canada 59 Lima, taxiing for 17 left. The Atis is still Delta, the altimeter is 2963. Taxi Juliet Sierra, Juliet, Bravo, Delta, and hold short, 17 left.
177 left by Juliet Sierra, Juliet, the Delta down to 17 left.
Juliet to Bravo to Delta to hold short, 17 left.
Bravo Delta hold short, 17 left for 5 hours.
German Cargo 472 Heavy, you're identified at flight level 320. You can use a multiple of real time. However, when you get closer to busier areas, if there's a lot of traffic, we'll have to change that. For now, it's okay.
German Cargo 472, hyperdrive is approved, and request climb flight level 340.
German Cargo 472 Heavy, climb flight level 340.
Climbing flight level 340, German Cargo 472 Heavy. Alright, so 340 VNAV. Let's just quickly do the step climb in real time, and once we're up there, we are going to engage the hyperdrive once again. Okay, so approaching. I just absolutely love how that airplane climbs so quickly.
Andar 2426 Heavy, Edmonton Center.
And Elvin, hi, nice to see you in the comments. I was just wondering how long it takes to study for VATSIM and study an aircraft type from scratch. I have a really basic knowledge of aviation and really want to get into it. Okay, I did do a VATSIM tutorial series that I would really recommend watching, and as part of those recommendations in there, I would absolutely recommend that you start in some remote areas, or at least not, you know, in Heathrow or Frankfurt. And when you do that, you kinda naturally get into it. As you're building up your skill, you can start flying into some of the busier events as well. Kind of works that way. Alright, and here we are. So, back on VNAV.
And Condor 24,
And we're reaching 80 west, so let's go ahead and do another fuel check while we've got the chance. So 80 west, 5 hours 55 versus 5 hours 50. Saved 5 minutes and 35.7 versus 38.6, so about 3 tons more. That's still looking good. Beautiful. Alright, so we're up at level. He's already approved our time acceleration, so let's increase back to 8x. And here we are.
Edmonton was at 413 with Kilo ready for taxi.
Now, Sitchin Tagase is asking in the comments, do pilots wear suntan lotion against the UV levels at high altitudes on long hauls? Some do. There is some debate going on whether it's useful or not, but as a matter of fact, the windows in your aircraft, they do contain filters. So, even though you might be sitting in the sun for 10 hours straight, you're not going to get a burn up there. Some say that such lotion would help against possible skin cancer, but there is no evidence to support that suggestion.
Condor 24267, couldn't make that out. Your clearance is to descend at your discretion to 1-2000 and plan the RNAV Zulu for 14 right.
Yeah, Roger, on discretion 1-2000 and we will just have to watch RNAV from the 246.
Can you text your question, please?
Yes, sir.
Flare 963.
So, Gideon, why does SimBrief sometimes give step descents, and is it necessary to follow those? Generally, if ATC wants you to change your level, they will call you to do that. Step descents are often given, or rather often planned, because not all high airspace routes are always going to be connected to the terminal routes, and therefore sometimes you might have to transition through lower airspace, and that's when a step descent would be planned. However, in general terms, in the real world, I would never request a descent because of a step descent in the flight plan, unless it's something en route that might be based on the meteorological conditions. So when you're flying long haul, sometimes your airline plans a step descent because the headwind might be stronger at a higher altitude, respectively the tailwind might be stronger at a lower altitude. And then it might make sense to do a step descent. However, that's rather rare. But it does happen. So have a look at your flight plan, have a look at the wind data in your flight plan, and then you can decide if it's sensible to follow the step descent or not. But let's call it political step descent, so due to airspace limitations or whatever, I never request those from ATC. If they want me to descend, they will make me descend. So, since we're out of the North Atlantic airspace, I've just reset the FMS to econ speed from the previous fixed Mach number. Rares Luca is asking, am I participating in any virtual airline? No, I'm not. I used to in the past, and it was really fun until I got more involved with real aviation and all the flexibility and options that we're using. For example, an air traffic controller might request you to fly faster than 250 knots below 10,000. Many virtual airlines have a rule that says no, you can't, and then they penalize you if you do. Well, I do not appreciate that. And then I've had one event in a virtual airline of a long-haul operator. I flew a 16-hour flight for them in real time. And then on the descent, I had a bug that froze the aircraft at like 20 feet of altitude. And when the sim resumed, I was on the ground, which is of course super annoying after 16 hours in real time. But most importantly, that virtual airline recorded a touchdown rate of like 800 feet a minute and outright denied me the flight. And yeah, that was reason enough to leave for me. And that was the last virtual airline that I participated in. In general, I think it's a great concept, and I think for the immersion factor, it's really a cool thing for many people to use. But personally, I'm not so much a fan anymore, especially because nowadays with the YouTube channel, I'm recording so many different kinds of operations, you know. Every flight is a different airline, every flight is different airports. Yeah, a virtual airline wouldn't fit that type of operating environment.
Swiss 1 Echo Heavy, good day to you. It's Edmonton Center. Squawk code is 1067, 1067.
1067 is what I...
And that plane guy in the comments, when was the last time I've flown a general aviation aircraft in the real world? Well, that must have been like 2 years ago or something. I generally just renewed my single engine rating 2 years ago. But then again, I didn't fly enough general aviation afterwards, so I let it expire once again. And Charlie M, welcome back. We are now about a little bit more than halfway through the flight. We are now 6.5 hours in flight for a planned flight time of 10 hours.
Flight level 380.
So, damn, we're actually already going to be there pretty soon.
Right, direct, Dumra, and on course.
Incredible. Svilas, where in the OFP would you see if the start or approach has a transition? You wouldn't.
And then Dumra on course.
If you're in the States, then sometimes you have some arrivals where you can see it in the route string. Like for example, Laser 3 arrival from Jackson, then you might have a transition from Jackson. Or you might not. But apart from that, you don't necessarily see it in the OFP. I usually use the FNS for that. You can nicely check that on the Lex page. And that's my solution to that type of problem.
Center Russia 413 passing 3,200 for 6,000.
And SEP 928 is the A330 instrument rating for all variants. Yeah, for all variants of the A330. But if you wanted to fly a single-engine piston aircraft IFR, then you would need a separate rating.
Climb level 340, Russia 413.
And Elvin Gao, no comments on the airline. However, I can tell you that I do not fly for Eurowings. I can tell you that. Think about it, Eurowings doesn't even have long-haul operation.
Left turn direct, Andy on course, Russia 413, thank you.
And my tech review. Hi, nice to see you here. Also in the Edmonton Center at the moment. And yeah, my Chinese friend. I really don't understand why Boeing keeps the heading bug open as well. The Airbus solution is a much better solution there.
Left turn in the taxiway where you are now and head north on Bravo.
Yeah, we're heading north on Bravo. Sorry about that.
Okay, Asap Durnan, if I had a rating for the A330 MRTT in the Air Force, would that be the same as a normal A330 for an airline? Most likely. Because it's simply a type rating. Obviously, I would need a civil license if I wanted to fly an airline A330. And that would probably include some sort of a skill test for conversion. An A320 pilot, how do you DM another pilot in vPilot? You type .msg, space sign, then the call sign of the other, space sign, and then you can type the text. And SEP 928, why do I not do 787 videos that often? That's simply because we don't have a study level 787. The Horizon Sim is nice, but you do notice its deficiencies, and I like the high fidelity that we have with aircraft like the PMDG 777, for example. I like the fidelity of the Inibuild 350, of the Phoenix 320. And yeah, a lot of that just isn't there in the 787. That's my reason why I do 787 videos every now and then, but not as often as the other types. It is an enjoyable plane, but, you know, it's not the same. And Blindbox Music, 8x sim rate. 8. Now, Senior Zoinks, sorry. When you fly the A330 in the real world, do you get confused or miss something in your flows because of using and learning new aircraft in MSFS? No. But I make very, very sure that I differentiate between those. And I often use A330 SOPs in simulated aircraft. Because I wouldn't use contradicting SOPs in the sim. Just so that it doesn't, you know, land somewhere in the back of my mind and then might come out at the wrong point. So that's something that I'm very aware of and that I'm actively battling so that that mistake wouldn't happen. Then again, you know, sometimes it happens that I make a call out of my former operator on the 737 because, you know, you did that for so many years. So if it happens eventually, then yeah, so be it. There are loads of former Boeing pilots, or let's say former Boeing captains on my A330 operation. So you don't want to know how often I hear heading select when someone goes in heading mode and reads out the FMA. That stuff happens. Then again, it's kind of funny, you know, when you have two former Boeing pilots, sometimes I just join in and give the correct Boeing SOP answer. But, you know, you always gotta be a little bit careful with that. See how the operation's going, if you can do that joke or if you better don't. And anti-cooperative, yes, you're absolutely right. If I knew that PMDG would be actively working on a 787 right now, I would not be able to tell. Just like I'm not able to say anything about a possible 737 beta in 2024. You know, that's a non-disclosure agreement. I'm just not allowed to talk about that stuff until there is a release of the non-disclosure agreement by the developer. And therefore, that's something that I absolutely respect. And if that's what the developer wants, then that's what the developer gets. If they want to use me for showing off their product, then I might be happy to do that, if it's a good product. There are some that I refused in the past, but, you know.
Calgary altimeter 2963.
2963.
And Dennis Airbus Sim, are the emergency points in the secondary flight plan on my departures in Airbus predefined? If so, are they public? Yes, they are predefined by the airlines, but they are not public. However, the standard emergency procedure, in case there is no terrain or political reason blocking you, the standard procedure is straight ahead 25 miles. So let's say our departure from Frankfurt of 25 Center earlier, the emergency point would have been FRA X5, so straight ahead 25 miles. And that's where you'd pick up the hold. And the number 5 is because 25 Center, if you follow the alphabet, is the 5th runway, theoretically. When you're starting with 07, left, right, center, 18, 25 left, 25 center. Kinda like that. And Charlie M, which new videos can we expect soon? Any interesting routes? I definitely think so. There will be one to Samos that I've already recorded, where I just need to do the editing for the cruise. There will also be something with the TBM 850 across the Yellowstone, which I really enjoyed filming. And I filmed some 737 MAX flight from Luxembourg. And a couple others. So there will be some interesting thing coming up. And ASAP, yes, we are allowed to use time acceleration. And Koki, did I ever have to divert in the real world? Yes. That was actually fairly recently, on a flight to Orlando. And, well, the weather in Orlando was so bad that ATC told us we would have to hold for over an hour, and we just didn't have the fuel for that. So we decided to divert, refuel at the alternate, and then flew back to Orlando. I mean, Florida in summer. If you don't divert a single time within a season, then you didn't fly there often enough. And Charlie, I must be very, very busy on my off days then. Well, let me put it that way. You don't really have a proper sleeping rhythm as a long-haul pilot. You really don't. So, yesterday I woke up at 3 AM. And I was finished recording 5 flights by 12 AM.
613, fly the runway heading and call me airborne. Winds in Calgary.
And now somebody asks me why
Clear for takeoff, 17 left.
I'm often not filming on VATSIM. Well, there's your reason. Because there is nobody online at that time. And that plane guy, would I possibly consider some more real-world flying content? Oh, I would absolutely love to, but the restrictions that my airline places are a little bit too restrictive. At least for the type of content that I would like to do. You know, I'm not allowed to show any of my airplane sounds, so not even a radio altimeter calling down on landing. I would not be allowed to show you any of the displays in the cockpit. You know, I could of course stick a GoPro out of the window and just show you the outside views, but I don't think that's the type of content that this channel stands for. And Carsten, I'm still a pilot. Nothing's changed there. And Set 928, what controller rating do I have on VATSIM, and do I control often? I do have a C1 rating, and no, I don't control often at all. Before I started the channel, I actually did a little bit of controlling, like 500 hours or so. But ever since I started the channel, I'm basically flying, and at some point I just didn't have the time anymore to maintain those minimum controlling sessions that they ask you to do, and that's when I basically decided that I'm going to quit the controlling. John Cargo 472 Heavy, any chance to proceed direct Yankee Delta Charlie?
German Cargo 472, stand by.
In the real world, Edmonton is really good with long direct. 1,000-mile direct? Been there, done that. And Melvin, that's a very good...
Box 472 Heavy. I don't see any reason why not. Vancouver is offline at the moment. Proceed Yankee Delta Charlie and then on course.
Thank you, Yankee Delta Charlie, then on course. German Cargo 472 Heavy. Lovely. 500-mile direct. Here we go. Beautiful. That's how this goes in the real world. That's how this works, guys. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
320 and current heading for, what's that, 6 please?
Dan Frog, stop trolling, man. Just stop trolling.
Flare 963. Cleared the RNAV Yankee approach, 17 left. The Ovebi transition. Call established on final.
And tell you what, Dan, you've trolled enough here. I'm gonna ban you. Bye-bye.
WestJet 613, turn right direct boat tagging on course.
Alright, so, Melvin, let's go back to the duty time. Basically, let's take a standard flight from Frankfurt to somewhere in Florida. 2 times a week, the company can use what's called an extended flight duty period. That basically extends your maximum legal permissible duty hour by 1 hour. So at the typical times where those Florida flights are departing, you would then be allowed to work for 14 hours. 90 minutes are pre-flight preparations, and then you've got the entire block time, so like 10 hours 30 normally to Florida, so that leaves you with 13 hours of duty time. Then you have that 1 hour left. Now 1 hour is not going to be enough to do the turnaround and fly back to your original destination if you've diverted. So what you can do, if you had anything unexpected happen after you departed from your home base, or anything on a flight back to your home base, anything unexpected, the captain is allowed to use what's called a captain's discretion. Captain's discretion means that only in the event of unexpected circumstances, the captain can extend the maximum duty time by up to 2 hours. Up to 3 hours if you're flying with a third pilot and had in-flight rest. And that way, once you've diverted to the alternate, you still have about 3 duty hours left to bring the plane back to your original destination after the diversion, or do whatever's necessary. And that's how these duty times work. And Asap, thank you very much for the donation. Thank you so much for your content. I have definitely learned a lot about real-world ops. I admire what you do. Thank you very much, Asap. That's really appreciated.
The RNAV Zulu approach to runway 14 right in Whitehorse.
And Lightning No Blue asking, how do I get paid? Is it just monthly payout, or do I get an hourly rate as well? So the salary in my company works the way that we have a basic pay, and then we have a guaranteed flight pay for 75 hours. The basic pay makes about 80% of the salary, and that flight pay makes about 20%. The reason why we have that flight pay is because we are working night shifts and weekends, we can get that tax-free. So only 80% of the salary gets taxed, and then those 20% are tax-free. Now, that includes 75 block hours. If we go over the 75 block hours, then we get 1/75 of our basic salary per flight hour until I think it's 85, and thereafter it gets like 150% of that value, and then the last from 90 to 100 is like 200% that value. So over 75 block hours you're in overtime and you get extra money for the hours. Up to 75 it's a gross sum that you get. Well, and that's how this works. And Jalen, how long did it take me to become a commercial airline pilot? Like from student pilot to where I am now. Also, are you from Germany? Yes, I'm from Germany. And how long did it take? Well, around 3 years. So the general flight school takes about 2 years and a bit. Then you have a couple of months that are going to go by while you're applying for the airlines. Sometimes it might even be like half a year or a year. In some cases longer. It really just depends on if you're lucky, if you're in a good time when you finish flight school, or if you're in a bad time. I was lucky. I was kind of in a good time. So I got a job within like half a year from graduating from flight school. And then of course you still do the training in the airline, which is like the ground school, the type rating, and then the line training. So that adds about another half a year. If you want to include line training, it's like 9 months or so.
472, you're leaving my airspace just now at a great rate of speed. Your service terminates for today. Come on, the Unicom now, 22.8, Vancouver's not online. Bye for now.
22.8, thank you so much. And yep, the hyperdrive is working wonderfully. Thank you very much for controlling, and see you next time. German Cargo 472 Heavy.
Manual 856 bye bye.
Alright, 22.8, here we are. So, AirDog, how long before passengers do you board the aircraft on the 737 and the 330? On the 737 generally some 10 to 15 minutes, and on the 330 it's usually about half an hour to 40 minutes. We generally arrive at the airplane about an hour before off-block, and the passengers start boarding like 30 minutes before. And broke flap, was I modular or integrated for my ATPL? Well, that was a funny story. I had the PPL in the club beforehand, so I basically joined an integrated course right from the point where they completed the practical PPL phase. So, technically speaking, I was modular, but practically speaking, I basically followed the integrated course. And Emmanuel Ligny, how many landings do you do per month? Yeah, that's the question. Sometimes none at all, and sometimes it's like 3 landings maximum. On a good month, maybe 4 landings, but that's got to be a good month. This month is a good month, by the way, because I had 2 short hauls, 2 times Palma, so this month is going to be 5 landings, most likely. Okay, we're approaching the top of descent, so let's go ahead and return to real time here. Leaving hyperspace. And let's start by setting up for arrival into Seattle. So, first thing first, let's grab some weather. Status requests. Seattle, VATSIM, and we will go for auto updates. I might regret it later, but we'll go for them. And Matthew, is that a Vortag as my top of descent? Yeah, well, almost. Okay, so while we're waiting, let's go to the VNAV page, forecast. The descent speed is just fine. So, forecast, request. And our ATIS has arrived as well. And that's Seattle Information Golf, 1753 Zulu, surface wind 210 at 8. Visibility over 10 miles, clouds broken at 14,000, overcast 2,000, temperature 16, dew point 13, altimeter 2996. So, 2996. Here we go. Alright, forecast uplink is here as well, beautiful. And here we go. So, Seattle, 25-mile ring for MSA awareness. Then, let's go ahead and find some charts for our arrival. So, Glazer 3 arrival, and the approach is going to be runway 16 right with an ILS. Now, where's the airport chart? Here it is. Let's see, we're parking up here on the cargo ramps. Big question is, where is the parking chart for that? Suppose we'll just have to search a little bit. No, not on here. Yeah, that one's looking better. Okay, I suppose that's the best we're gonna get. So that'll have to do. Alright, let's start preparing. Glazer 3 arrival, and we are coming in from, what did I say, Jackson. So we're joining the arrival like midway through. I've already joined those up in the FMS down here, but let's take a look at the plan page. So, at Jackson, landing south, 250 knots, cross at maintain 12000, like that. Then we continue via Woody, and then to Heather at 250. No, that's only landing north. Okay, to Heather, and thereafter heading 250. And that's exactly what we've got down here. Now, by now, we can also go back to heading reference magnetic. But look at how much of a difference that makes. Look at the compass down here. That's like 15 degrees of difference. Okay, so that stuff's in here. Then let's go ahead and find the ILS chart. Should probably have done it out of circle or something, but hey, it's gonna be fine. Oh, Shurik, thank you so much for the 10 Canadian dollar donation. Your content helped me a lot to learn basics of the A320, 330 and 350. Thank you very much for that. Please do something in or out of Toronto, as it is my home airport. We can definitely do that again in the future. And we also received a private message here from another airplane. Hello, I apologize for any inconvenience, but I was very happy when I know that I'm in the same airspace with you. I'm currently in the longest flight from Singapore to New York. I would like to thank you and express my gratitude to you because I've learned a lot from you, and I hope you continue to do so. Have a nice flight. Well, thank you very much, Adam. That's really appreciated. Thank you very much. Just gotta write him that. Alright, cool. Then let's continue with our preparation. The approach starts at Buckney, and that's in 3200, which we have. Then down to Finca, 1900. From there it's going to be a 3-degree glide, which matches the chart, down to the runway. Now comes the missed approach, which is a fun one here in Seattle. So, climb to 900, then climb on heading 195 and outbound on Seattle radial 210 to cross T's. At or below 2000, then climb to 5000, outbound via Seattle VOR radial 210 to Zurli. So, we have straight out on the runway heading until 400 AGL, then 195 to intercept, 210 in mounted T's, below 2000, and then Zurli at 5000. And here we go. So, with that, the route is checked. Now, let's see, we have 10.2 on the landing, 7.3 is the reserves. That gives us about 15 minutes. The 777 basically uses 100 kilos a minute, close to the landing weights. And with that, we have more like 20-25 minutes-ish. Alright, cool. So, we are now going to burn, let's see, 12.3 on board and 10.2 for landing, so we are burning 2,000 kilos, which makes a landing weight of basically 245. Alright, cool. So we've got that. Let's go ahead and do some landing calculations. Landing en route, Seattle Tacoma, runway 16 right. So landing weight 245 tons. Like that. We'll start with flaps 25, see what it's gonna say. Actually, I tell you what, 153 is too fast. Let's do flap 30. Okay, air conditioning on, engine wing anti-ice auto, reverser credit, we will take it. Auto brake, probably 3. Icing conditions, none. VRF addition, 5 knots. Then, for the weather, we've got winds, 210 at 8. Temperature down here in Seattle is 16 degrees, and the QNH is 2996. Alright, calq. Oh god, do we really need to type the decimal? Calculate. So that looks quite good to me. 2,220 meters out of 2,600 meters available. I think we can definitely do that. So flaps 3, auto brake. Oh, sorry, flaps 30, auto brake 3. That way around. Great. And we've got another new message down here, which is in new ATIS. Lovely. 220 at 7, 18, 2999. Yeah, almost unchanged. That landing performance might vary by a few meters, but not significant. So we are just going to keep that stuff. And that's looking good to me. Alright, cool. So, heading 194, let's just dial that one in here as well. So, recall is looking good. We've got no open items in the checklist, no notes. Well, then let's go ahead and start the approach briefing once our minimum is dialed in. So, 6:15, and I am going to do it the easy way. Menu, EFIS control, EFIS 6:15, enter. And back off. Alright, and with that our minimums is tuned. Yes, I know I'm kinda cheating with that, but I like it. I like it. So, a couple of comments that the stream would be buffering a bit, but I don't see any warnings in my streaming client, so this time it doesn't seem to be me. This time. Okay, so, yeah, tell you what, let's start with the approach briefing, please. And I am gonna do my Airbus briefing here because it's just easier, and in my opinion also more sensible. Okay, so we are going to fly the Glacier 3 arrival into Seattle. The approach will be the ILS to runway 16 right, minimum 615, and for any go-arounds we are going to climb slightly to the right-hand side, initially 2000, which is a very low level of altitude, and then later on we are going to continue the climb up to 5000 feet on the outbound radial. Extra fuel and time, we have approximately 25 minutes of extra fuel on board. So, thank you for that. The arrival will be flight director guided, flaps 30, and we are going to use maximum reverse, auto brakes 3, vacate the runway to the left-hand side. We have a stop margin of approximately 300 meters, and on the taxi in we're going to cross both 16 center and 16 left. We'll have to taxi all the way back up to the cargo apron, which is in the north of the field, and we've got nothing special and nothing non-standard. Threats for the arrival, the terrain is definitely one. And for that we will be using the terrain display on your side. I'll keep the weather on mine as long as it is a factor. If weather is no factor anymore, then I'll change over to the... then I'll be changing over to the terrain display as well. And I think that's really everything. Anything from your side? No? Lovely. And for those of you who are getting those buffers, I just quit my YouTube client and restarted it on my iPad, where I'm also watching the stream to read your questions, guys. And that has fixed the buffeting for me at least. So maybe just try leaving the stream and coming back in, and that seems to fix it. Okay, so we're about to reach our top of descent, so let's do a recall and then we can do the descent checklist, please. Recall, checked, notes checked, auto brake 3, running data, VREV 3145, minimum power 615, set left, set right, approach briefing completed, descent checklist complete. So, 4 miles to our top of descent, let's go ahead and start by going down to something like 25,000 or so. I will keep this in real time now for the rest of the flight, so that you guys can follow along. And anti-cooperative, how do you change between the left and right CDU when using the WinWings MCDU? You can do that in the settings of that WinWing app, or personally I'm not using the WinWing app, I'm using MobiFlight, and there I just load the profile for the other CDU. Alright, and down we go. So with that I'll just turn the fasten seatbelt side on as a reminder to the third pilot that he please comes back to the flight deck. And Ruben GT, do I have any tips on how to prepare for the group exercise at the pilot's assessment? None that would exceed the information that you can find online anyway. And You know, the most important thing is that you be yourself, that you don't pretend to be something that you aren't, because the assessors will notice that. And Silverdrift, how do I have the elapsed timer on the primary flight display? That's an option that you can select. So you go down here, menu, PMDG setup, aircraft, equipment, and down here it's somewhere a digital clock or so. Here it is, page 4. Clock type, digital. Frankfurt Traffic's, Nabend, hi. Okay, airplane, what are you doing? You had all the wind data. Let's add some power, regain that speed. Definitely don't want to fly too slow. That's one of the things I like about the Boeing auto throttle. With Boeing, if the speed drops, if it's in hold mode, you just take your thrust levers and advance them. And Borna, any tips on what to do if your medical is denied? Well, talk to the doctor. That's the only thing. Well, or if you live in the EU, then you can just try it again in another country, because they all have different regulations, but you haven't heard that one from me. And Charlie, I just read that the government in the UK has finally given approval for the second runway at Gatwick. Wow. I mean, it took them a little bit of time, but hey, good to hear. London definitely needs runways. The amount of traffic over there is incredible, and the separation they use is as well. And Picos, did I ever have any emergency on board in a real flight? Well, you know, ill passengers and that kind of stuff, but emergencies in terms of broken airplanes or so, no. And those are super rare, to be honest. Alessandro is asking, does anyone know if the Phoenix A320 runs well enough on a 1050 Ti? Honestly, ultimately it will depend on the resolution. You know, if you're running at a 700 pixel resolution, then yes, the Phoenix will run well on your 1050 Ti. If you aim to run at 4K, probably not. And Imeric, do I use time compression during long-haul flights? Yeah, absolutely. I tell you honestly, I would much rather sit in front of my simulator for an hour compressing a long-haul flight like I just did when I'm recording this, than to, you know, take off in the evening, go to sleep, see nothing of my flight, and then land in the morning. You know, of course time acceleration isn't 100% realistic, but at least you're at the controls the entire time, just like you would be in the real world, and you can do all the things that you would do in the real world as well. So that's my take on this. I would absolutely use time acceleration whenever I have the opportunity in cruise. And Frankfurt Traffic's asking, do you prefer flying Airbus or Boeing? Oh, absolutely Airbus. The plane is so much more comfortable. In my opinion, it's also better thought out in terms of the avionics, but honestly that doesn't really matter too much. You could give me any airplane. As long as it is comfortable to work in, I'm happy flying anything. And in those terms, the seat is much nicer in the Airbus. You have a lot more space in the Airbus. I've recently been in the cockpit of a 747-8, and man, the thing was cramped. I have no clue how those guys managed to survive in there for up to 15 hours. So, very much Airbus. And WH, would I be flying the TFDI MD-11 at any point soon? Well, yeah, basically when they release the next update, or the big update for Flight Sim 2024. I know the plane is currently compatible, even though not very nicely, but compatible at least. And once they release the huge update that they're working on with the new sim, I'm absolutely sure I will do some coverage again. And Borna, not even the 787 or 777, well, I think Airbus is still better, because... Okay, I am not sure if that's going to demonetize the channel, but I have one huge thing beneath my legs, I don't need another. Take it or leave it, YouTube algorithm. And Yosmich, yes, I'm actually still testing for PMDG, respectively advising when we're talking about the 737. Now Chris, which upcoming aircraft am I excited about? Well, absolutely the Airbus A340s. The A220, I'm still a little bit undecided about it, because I'm not sure how good the avionics are going to be. I hope they're going to be good. Of course the Bluebird 757, and then also the Just Flight Fokker 70 and Fokker 100, as well as their Learjet 45. And of course, taking general aviation into account, we gotta talk about the Black Squares as well, so their upcoming Baron, and of course the King Air. And that interruption was, by the way, not because I had to think about their upcoming product, but because there is a lovely insect that's currently skimming my monitor. And for a moment I was thinking about just crushing it, but then I thought, like, no, I don't want to buy another monitor anytime soon. And Lucian, do I think Unibuild will reconsider releasing the A340 for 2024 only? Honestly, I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because that simulator, or let's say FS 2020, just has so many limitations when compared to Flight Sim 2024. And I think that they are basically basing all their modeling on the new sim, so I don't think it's worth it any longer to produce for the old sim. And by the way, if you're wondering, that sound of private message we just got was from another pilot just saying thank you for my videos. So thank you very much, Federico, if you're currently in the chat. Thank you very much. Also going to write it to him, of course. Alright, here we go. So, let's start going down a little bit further. Down to 12,000 up next, and then we can set the QNH. And 2999 is cross-check, passing 21 to now. And Chris, what's my current opinion on the A350 from Unibuilds? I really like it. I really, really like it. But I did ever since the first release. And I'm totally honest, I cannot really understand a lot of the critique that you see about it online. Obviously it isn't perfect, but let's face it, if you just do the normal operation and follow the SOPs, that thing works. And it's done so for a long time. It is a little bit frame rate and performance heavy, that's out of question. But at least it looks good as well, so you do get something for that performance impact. It flies okay. I mean, not Phoenix-like, but okay. The sounds could use a little improvement if you use the non-ANR sound set. But then again, I usually do use the ANR sound set. And let's face it, with ANR on, you might as well model a very strong ANR and just, you know, don't have any sounds at all any longer. Yeah, that's a lot of private messages here. Again, someone saying thank you for the channel. Alright, a little bit of weather coming up ahead, but nothing to worry about, just green and a bit of yellow. And YSAT, thank you very much for the 10 British pound donation. That's really appreciated, my friend. Thank you so much. And Glut, I am sorry for not pronouncing your last name. Since you're still in the PMDG team, perhaps you know the insights a little bit better. Why did they decide to go for the 747-100 first instead of the 400? IMO, it doesn't make more sense to release the most popular variant first, does it? I'm not 100% sure if they've actually announced that yet. Haven't they said all the time that they are going to release the one variant first that's going to be ready first? Haven't they said that they are working on both variants at the same time? That's what I recall from their public communication. So there's one thing about the development that might be worth thinking about. That's the simple fact that the 747-400 system-wise is almost the same as the 100. It's just got all those computers that are automatically handling the systems rather than the flight engineer handling them. But I am fairly confident, even though PMDG hasn't announced anything the likes yet, I'm fairly confident that they will have some sort of an automatic flight engineer. And that automatic flight engineer, from a developer's perspective, I could imagine. I don't have a direct insight there. This is all just me reasoning. But that automatic flight engineer would do almost the same things that the computers would be doing in the 400. So basically, it would make sense to develop both next to one another. And, well, if they reach the finished stages on one of the two first, then that's going to be released first. At least that's what they have announced last, haven't they? Alright, so we're below 18,000. That means we could possibly encounter VFR traffic here, so let's turn on those landing lights. And let's go ahead and... oh, there is no CTAF frequency published. So chat, tell me, when there is no CTAF frequency published, which frequency do we use? Do we just use the tower frequency here? 16 right, 120.95? Or do we use the one that probably everyone else is using? Or which frequency are we using now? It's been a little while since I've flown in the States, at least without ATC. And flying ATC, do I know something about the Flight Sim Studios E-Jets? Yeah, there is one thing that I know about them, and that's the content creator policy. Go to their website, flightsimstudios.com, and then scroll all the way to the bottom. There you will find the content creator policy. And I tell you something, Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un would be proud of that. That thing is a complete censorship. So, if I'm not free to talk about those aircraft, then I don't feel like covering them. And this clause 1.8 in their content creator guidelines, honestly, that is disgusting. I would have thought that Flight Sim Studio would have learned when they announced when they made their mistake with the E-Jet release. But no, they haven't learned a thing. That content creator policy, as mentioned, Vladimir Putin would be happy. Alright, so guys, you all say 12095. And Cole B, you can type .ctaf and the upload ICO. Okay. I never knew that. But that's a very good thing to have. So, .ctaf KSEA. And that's 119.9. Interesting, that's the ground frequency, isn't it? No, actually it's the larger tower. So 119.9. That was a very good piece of advice. Thank you very much for that. So let's already change over to that frequency. Now, weather is still a little bit of a factor here. What's the terrain doing? High is 143, but that's somewhere over there on the other side. Let's reduce the range a bit, see what the terrain is doing here. So, 7.3. Well, then I suppose we can ascend to 10,000. So, level change. Now we're going to see a feature of the 777 in action. When you are changing your level, but not to a great extent, so for example, descending 2,000 feet over here, then level change is going to adjust the thrust so that we don't get an excessive rate of climb or descent. Now, since we are pretty heavy, it might go all the way to idle, since the airplane is just going to glide very well, due to the enormous energy that we're carrying. But, yeah, I don't think that's completely flight idle. So look at that, doing a nice 1,000 feet a minute here. Looking nice. Now let's actually take out that staff chart for some terrain contour lines. Will you? Please? Thank you. Alright, so we're crossing the last high terrain now. Thereafter we can descend. Good. Very good. Then let's actually go down to something like 7,000 or so. And Barmar 421. Honestly, I usually announce my streams like a couple minutes before they start. Sorry. Sometimes a day in advance, but usually no longer than that. Alright, so since the approach is going to be more or less straight in, let's go ahead and help it a little bit. So, you go all the way to idle. And here we go. Let's go down a bit. Alright, passing 10,000. Lights are on. We no longer need those. Well, I tell you what, we would actually need them until we are inside the clouds. At least the front ones. Okay, signs are on and everything else is set. Beautiful. And then let's take a little shortcut here, heading to 40 to establish ourselves on the approach. Extend the center line from Buckney. That's gonna be 164. Like this. Execute. Alright, and let's descend to 3,000 feet. Right into the sun. Nice. Okay, approach checklist. Altimeters, QNH 2999R. Approach checklist complete. And intercept localizer. Yes, I still use the Honeycomb Bravo. Okay, we are now getting below the glide slope. That means we can soon start to retract the speed brakes again. Approaching. Alright, and speed brakes going back in. Alright, inside the clouds. Now we can definitely get rid of the sun shades. Lovely cloud surfing here. Absolutely lovely. Alright, so nothing on the weather radar at all, neither in our approach nor in the missed approach, so I am going to go to the terrain display. And Charlie M, is engine anti-ice needed? Nope, not at all. Temperature is plus 16 up here. And most importantly, the 777 has automatic anti-icing. So, as long as the anti-ice switches are in auto, the plane is sensing if it actually incurs icing or not. And if it does, then it activates the anti-ice automatically. Okay, 1000 to go, vertical speed, and reducing the speed down towards the up speed. And runway 03, no need to worry about cutting through here, we're flying a freighter today. So, the speed's come back nicely. Approaching the center line here, 5 miles to run. Alt.
Yeah, traffic Delta 871, hold up that one for 168. We're sending through 9,000.
And my Polish friend, yes, de-icing is automatic as well in the 777. So, flaps 1. Speed checked, flaps 1. Okay, so let's see, there is no ATC online here in Seattle. Too bad, Vancouver would have had an approach now. Alright, and flaps 5. So, left heading 190, cleared ILS. And then I tell you what, we are gonna have a little bit of fun here. So, manual flight. Is that a bird in front of us there? If yes, that is a very fast bird. Localize our life. Aha! Localizer capture, and we start seeing a little bit of the city. Lock. Seattle traffic, German cargo, 472 heavy, 9 miles final, Romeo 16 right. So, there is some traffic like 3 miles behind. Glide slope capture. And I just noticed that my headset turned itself off. Okay, glide slope capture, go around altitude 2000 set. Alright, so if any of the other guys tried to talk to us, then yeah, I wouldn't have heard them because my headset turned itself off. Alright, cool. So, nicely established, then gear down and flaps 15. Actually, flaps 20. Man, my hand flying sucks right now. Doing too much at the same time.
Come out to the southwest of the field at 9,500.
Right, flaps
shoot the ILS
30.
16 right approach. Seattle traffic.
And Seattle traffic, JetBlue 197, we're gonna shoot for the 16 right behind the Delta 971. JetBlue 197.
NCL traffic Delta 871, turn left base now, 163, 4,000 feet.
Yep, it is rather busy over here. And I've previously heard nothing of it because my headset had shut itself off. Oh god, at least we didn't fly into anyone. But that's embarrassing. Alright, landing checklist. Landing checklist complete. Checked. Alright, let's go for manual thrust.
Approaching 16 right.
Checked. Wind is changing a little bit, making it interesting.
500. 400.
So 500 continue.
300.
So, first live stream landing in a long time. This better be a good one.
Approaching minimums.
Checked.
Minimums.
Continue.
100. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Speed press up. Thrust wheels normal. 77%. 100 knots. 80 knots.
Meters
remaining. 60 knots. Manual brakes.
900 remaining.
And set subject jet to 197 for the Delta 871, we're only 8 knots behind.
Alright, and that's 16 right vacated. Seattle, German cargo 471 heavy, 16 right vacated. Alright, so let's do this quickly. Strobes, landing lights, flaps, and spoilers. We really need an auto zoom function here, don't we? Here we go, that's nicer. Alright, so is there anybody close to that threshold? Yeah, one guy on approach, okay. But he seems to be on the left. Seattle, German cargo 472, crossing 16 center, holding short 16 left.
Center.
Okay, so that landing guy is hopefully going to be on the ground in a moment here. Alright, so overall I tend to say that landing was quite okay. Wasn't a perfect one, we flat for a little bit, but hey, we made it on the ground, the airplane can be used again. That's the important stuff, isn't it? And now comes the real interesting stuff.
Everyone 5 miles out now, 163. Yeah.
So, where is the guy on the landing run? There he is. Alright. So, we'll be crossing behind him. And the strobe light's coming on. And here's the American. Without a landing gear.
Approaching runways.
Yep. Box 472, crossing 16 left behind the American. Alright, so MK Studios for Seattle. Beautiful scenery if you ask me. Really beautiful scenery. Now I gotta make sure that we don't get too close, depending on how he taxis. And we shouldn't be going too fast. That's a tendency I see a lot in the real world as well. You've been moving at like 900 kilometers an hour for 10 hours in a row, and then after landing you gotta do 10 knots in the turns. Oh yes, people do have a tendency to go faster. But we're actively working to prevent that, of course. Alright, so that's the runway crossed. Now we gotta find that cargo apron. It is all the way up to the north over there, I can tell you that. So all the way up here. I think we're parking in cargo 3. Oh, empty airplane. All of a sudden it taxis a lot easier than it did back in Frankfurt. Okay, so we do have 3 minutes after landing, so we could shut down an engine if we wanted to, but to tell you honestly, with 90 tons of cargo on board, we're pretty heavy, so I will delay that a little bit. Now, let's see, GSX.
Indicated 16 right, November, we're going to be November to the ramp, crossing to 160. Yeah.
I got no idea how those parkings are called in GSX. Yeah, not much we can do about it then. We'll have to park without a marshaller. Unless any one of you guys knows, then do put it into the chat.
Seattle traffic, Delta 1714 is around 15 miles to the north-northwest of the field at 6,000, return base for the ILS runway 16 right approach. Seattle traffic.
Seattle traffic, JetBlue 197, shots final 165.
Alright, so we'll be going straight for a little bit longer. What we could do in the meantime is to check Flight Radar 24 for where they parked in the real world. That might be an easy thing to do for us. And looking at it, they parked in the very north. Okay, I know where to go now. Up here, Cargo 3. If anyone in the chat wants to look up how they actually call the parking up here, so that we can select it in GSX, that would be appreciated. If that's not possible, then that's fine as well. But if anyone could look it up, especially for GSX, so that I can select the marshaller, that'd be perfect. Man, loads of traffic here. At this time of the day. What is it over in Seattle right now? 2 p.m? 3 p.m? And YNL 2012, no APU start. Nope. Only when we get close to our final parking position. And Paul, it's Frankfurt to Seattle, we just arrived. And my Chinese friend, it's either stand 13 or 15, okay. Let's see if we got anything the likes in GSX. North parking. Yeah, we do. Alright, so let's use stand 15 then.
Seven traffic, JetBlue 197, runway 165 vacated.
Phoenix Logistics. Oh, I like that. We gotta choose them. Okay, so the way it looked on flight radar is that they taxied all the way to the end and then made a turn to the right and onto the apron. So let's go ahead and do about that. The question is just where is that line to turn to the right? I think it's over here. Yeah, over here, then a slight U-turn and then back in. That's what they did in the real world. Probably due to some traffic or something, but hey, if they did that IRL, then we can do it in the sim, can we?
Seattle traffic, JetBlue 197, cleared off runway 167, crossing 16 left and check down to the run.
Alright. So here's that, and then back to the left and onto the apron.
10 miles out, runway 16 right.
And as we're about to enter the apron, let's start the APU. Okay, so now it's off to the left-hand side, and then our parking is going to be either one of the two. We'll look at where the ground staff is, and that's the one we're gonna go into. Okay, so... And QRP, what aircraft am I currently flying in the real world? Well, if I was currently flying one in the real world, that would probably be a rather large misbehavior here, costing me my license, doing a live stream at the time. But to answer your question, it's the A330. Airbus A330. Alright, so that's number 9 over here. And we gotta go a little bit further straight. And I think I see some stuff over there. That's probably our stand. Which one have we selected again? Number 15. Okay, so here's 13, then the next is probably gonna be 15. Lights off. Yep, there's number 15, and there's some staff. And the marshal are inside as well. Wonderful. Alright, so... Can barely see her at all. A little bit further left. Not clear with the stairs over here? Yeah, it is. And... stop. Great. So, park and brake set, APU running as confirmed, shutting down left and shutting down right. Here we are. Okay, so, transponder 2000 and standby. Here we go. Engines running down, approaching 20%. Fine. Alright, shutdown checklist. Park and brake is set. Shutdown checklist completed. So, then let's go ahead and do some of our post-flight work. Most important thing first, let's get the shocks in a position, ground power unit as well. Then we can shut the APU down. Now let's call for deboarding over here. Okay, now let's do the important stuff. There are no status messages. Oil quantity is fine. Alright, and up here everything is looking good as well. Beautiful. So let's just quickly run to the aft before they start opening the doors on their own, just so that we can disarm them. Incredible how quiet it gets when you get back here. I wonder if that's the case on the real airplane. Alright, so one left is disarmed. And one right is disarmed. Good. I like the carpet down here. Lovely livery. Alright, so they're putting the stairs in place right now. Let's wait until the stairs are connected.
14 is clear, runway 16 right.
We should hear them. Okay, here we go. Ouch, that looks expensive. Looks like the GSX profile is not exactly correct in all places. And Mouse756 has asked, why am I not flying in the real world currently? Well, because I'm sitting at home in front of my computer. Alright then guys, so we've made it this far. Now let's go ahead and do the remainder of the post-flight work here. I could very well imagine that we would be the crew to fly the airplane on to Los Angeles now, from where it's going to return to Frankfurt. But since it's getting rather late in the real world already, we will not be doing that flight today. We might be doing it at some point in the future. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to fly that almost flight to Los Angeles over the course of the next couple of days in a live stream. Put it into the comments. I'd very much be interested to hear your take on that one, and then of course the flight back to Frankfurt. Alrighty, so with that we've made it down here and to Houston. I tell you what, I thought about flying to Houston. I really thought about it. My first idea for today's live stream was to fly the rotation from Frankfurt to Dallas, then on to Houston, and then back to Frankfurt. But unfortunately, for some reason, that ImagineSim Dallas scenery didn't have any buildings, didn't have any taxiways or nothing. I know that there is a current bug with, or well, not a current bug, but that there used to be a bug with the release of Sim Update 3, but they pushed a hotfix for that, which I downloaded, but for some reason the scenery still wasn't working. And, well, then I had to abandon that original idea, and that's how I arrived at the idea to fly to Seattle instead. Alright, so guys, thank you very much for flying along. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I did. I surely had a blast with this one, but now it's up to you to leave your feedback in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of the flight. We are surely going to do more than just this one over the future. Probably also some more with the 777 in the time soon, but for now, thank you very much for flying along. As always, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and if you really love what I'm doing on the channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm really looking forward to welcome you on another live stream very, very soon.